Two, check. Two, check. One.
We're going to call to order.
They're still getting. You want to catch this way? You got it?
Yeah, that's great. Who didn't sign?
They're still coming this way.
Go that way.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, I'm going to call to order. If everyone can have a seat. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. It's August 21st, 2024. We have a meeting of the Planning and Zoning board members. Let's see who we have here. There's a short one here if everyone wants to introduce themselves.
Brian Donaldson.
Patrick McTeague.
Steve Gannon.
Marilyn Momano.
John Baranka.
And we have staff of Ms. Parker, Mr. Hetzel, Ms. Wallen is the city advisor, legal advisor. And then we have Ms. Devonish, Mr. Ferreira with the urban planning. And we have a quorum. Do we have an approval of the minutes from last meeting or a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
It was Marilyn who,
Shall I do it again for them?
yes.
I move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
And the second, Steve Gannon.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. The meetings are approved. Did we have everyone who wants to speak was sworn in? If anybody was, did anyone know we were to do that, or do we have to do it now?
I can do it now.
Okay. Anyone who's going to be speaking tonight, please stand, raise your right hand, and you're going to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
So instead of doing case one first, we're going to try and take some of the shorter cases first, because I know that might be a longer case. So why don't we take case two, UDP Z24007. Do I need to take any kind of vote to do that, or can I just rearrange it?
You can rearrange it.
Okay, so let's take case number 2 first, which is a rezoning. Thank you. Okay. Okay, great. Go ahead.
Good evening, board members. Michael Ferreira, urban planner and case planner for item UDP Z24007. This item is phase 7 of the city's initiative to rezone city properties being utilized as parks open space to the Parks Recreation Open Space Zoning District. So this request specifically is to rezone 19,682 square feet of land located at 2900 East Las Olas Boulevard from Planned Resort Development District to Parks Recreation Open Space District. The property is currently vacant, and this is the Channel Square Park.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Any public want to speak? Thomas Ernest? Let's do that. We'll do it in order. Thomas Ernest? Please state your name for the record when you get up to the podium.
My name is Thomas Ernest. Ecstatic for this proposed change from PRD to Parks, Recreation, and Open Space District. Please approve this request. Fort Lauderdale Beach is in a crisis situation with the rapid development of the beach area. It's going to be overwhelmed. The development of Pier 66 property significantly increased the density. The property across from 17th Street from Pier 66 proposed to be densely developed similar to Pier 66. The Bahia Mar property is proposed redevelopment into a high-density area like Pier 66. The proposed development of the corner of Las Olas North and southbound and Poinsettia Street is so obscene that the developer wants to build over Almond Avenue and Banyan Street, and the list goes on. As it is now, the citizens of Fort Lauderdale can't be assured of coming to the beach on weekends with their families and find parking on the Las Olas Municipal Garage or on the street. Imagine you are a citizen and you can't take your kids to the beach because you can't park. Parking in the new building is prohibitively expensive for young families. In the 1976 movie Network, TV anchorman Howard Beale exclaimed, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore." Well, the mayor, the city commissioners, and the development staff need to know the citizens of Fort Lauderdale are mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. We don't want Fort Lauderdale Beach to become like Hallandale, a concrete and asphalt jungle. Traffic is so bad in the winter that it doesn't move. To go get milk or anything else is a journey. Enough is enough. SOB is Save Our Beach. Stop this madness of crushing, increasing density. Thank you.
Thank you. James Gordon?
Hi, my name is James Gordon. I reside with my wife full-time at the Venetian condominium at 1 Las Olas Circle. We'd like to thank Mayor Trent Towers, Vice Mayor Glassman, elected city officials, Park Department, and this board for their hard work in considering this zoning change. John Burns, the president of the Venetian condominium, also asked me to represent the condominium in this meeting as he's unavailable tonight. My wife and myself and the Venetian condominium support the rezoning. of the Channel Square and Promenade Park from PRD Recreation to from PRD to Recreation and Open Space Park Zoning District. Preservation of the open green space, including access to the public, is very important to the citizens of Fort Lauderdale. Parks create a unique link for both citizens and tourists from the Intracoastal Waterway all the way to the ocean. We thank you for recognizing the importance of these parks and encourage you to move forward with such rezoning so we continue to enjoy the green space along, along the beach and the waterfront. Thank you so much, and we support this.
Thank you. Bill Brown?
Good evening, Chairman, or Vice Chairman, and members of the Planning and Zoning. Bill Brown, President of the Central Beach Alliance. Real quickly, Central Beach Alliance runs for the HOA Civic Association, primarily from the BMR all the way on the Barrier Island down to Oakland Park, with all the condo buildings, the majority of them belonging in residents, which is over 6,000. We're here tonight in support. We want to commend the City Commission, the Parks Board, and hopefully tonight by your action of approving this. I think the initiative that the Parks Board and some of the other civic groups have taken throughout the city to try to rezone some of these cleanup parcels that are small parcels. This has been a long list, and I think this item and the next one has been part of that initiative so that they didn't bring them to you all at once, or they're slowly bringing them in. So not to take up any more time, we just ask for your support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ted Insara?
Hello, good evening. Ted and Sarah, President of the River Oaks Civic Association. I just want to echo what these gentlemen said earlier, which is spot on with what my beliefs are. The one thing I would like to add to it, I just sure hope they don't turn this into a Tunnel Top Park East and put all the AstroTurf, all the concrete, leave it a park, leave the grass, put in some real trees, and make it a real park and not a plastic park like we have at Tunnel Top. Thanks.
Thank you. Fred Stressow?
I meant for that to be on the last item on 07.
Okay. Did I pronounce your name right at least?
Close.
Okay, good. Well, I'll work on it. I have time. I have time to work on it. All right, we can bring it back to the board. Does anybody have any comments, any statements? This is for 3?
Do we have a cheat sheet? Do we have a cheat sheet? How to make the motion?
Oh, here you go. Here you go, Mayor.
Oh, you got a cheat sheet? Thank you.
You're welcome. So I see no comments. Does anybody have a motion to make?
I'd like to make a motion. Okay, it's a rezoning. I'd like to make a motion to approve, I move to recommend the approval of case number UDP Z24007. I got the right one? Yes, I think so. Based on the following findings of facts, the facts in the city staff report and/or based on the testimony heard by us tonight, and the board hereby finds that the application meets the applicable criteria of the ULDR cited in the staff report. There being no conditions, that's the motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Patrick. You can call the roll.
Ms. Mamono? Yes. Mr. McKee?
Yes.
Mr. Wayman?
It's not present. Got it. Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Jay Schechtman?
Yes.
Mr. Bronco?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Sherry McCartney? Mr. Gannon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we're going to move on to case number 3, which is also Parks and the presentation.
Yes, good evening, board members. Again, Michael Ferreira, urban planner, case planner for item UDP Z24008. It's a continuation of the phase 7 of the city's initiative to rezone city property being utilized as parks and open space to the Parks Recreation and Open Space Zoning District. This request is to rezone 98,535 square feet of land located at 300 Las Olas Circle from Planned Resort Development District to the Parks Recreation Open Space District. The property is currently vacant as well, and this is a Promenade Park. I'm here if you guys have any questions.
Thank you, and I'll open it to the public. I have James Gordon again. Number 4.
Testing, okay. Thank you very much. I'm James Gordon, again, resident and a butter to Promenade Park at 300 Las Olas Circle. I'll save time tonight and just say that myself, my wife, and the Venetian condominium, which I'm representing this evening, all are in support of the changed zoning to the park zoning district for this parcel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and then I have Bill Brown.
Bill Brown, President, Central Beach Alliance. I will be very quick. I stand by from the previous case of statements I made, and I just point out that this is already being used as a park. It's called the Promenade Park. The boat show and several other larger events have used it since they redeveloped Las Olas Ocean Beach Park. So again, thank you for your support.
Anyone else from the public want to speak? Seeing no one, will close the public portion, open up to the board. Does anyone have any comments from the board?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, we'll close the comments. You can make a motion.
Make a motion to recommend approval. I move to recommend approval of case number UDP Z24008 based on the following findings of fact. The fact that the city report and based on testimony here by the applicant that the board hereby finds that the application meets the applicable criteria of the ULDR cited in the staff report. No conditions at this point.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, who won?
No, Mateague won. Spread the joy.
Okay, Mateague. Mateague's the second. You can call the roll.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
I'm sorry, just 1 second. Case number 3. Okay. Mr. McTeague?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Scheckman?
Yes.
Mr. Barranco?
Yes.
Mr. Gannon?
Yes.
And Ms. Mamano?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to case 1, UDP S22055 for presentation. Oh, disclosures is right. Anybody have any disclosures?
I'll start. Yes, I have a site visit. I also met with the applicant, and I also met with the applicant's agent.
Patrick McTeague, I did a site visit. I had a phone call from State Rep Chip LaMarca. Spoke with the representative for the applicant, Ms. Toothaker. I had a phone call from Commissioner John Herbst.
Steve Gannon, spoke with applicant's attorney, site visit, and that's it.
Brad Cohen spoke with applicant's attorney.
Jay Scheckman spoke with applicant's attorney.
No disclosures.
I spoke to the applicant's attorney, the applicant, the architect, and I did do a site visit.
Good evening, everybody. Stephanie Toothaker on behalf of Symbol DLT. Before I begin my presentation, I just want to ask Asi Symbol to come up and say a few words.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Asi Symbol. I'm the chairman of Symbol DLT Companies, the developer and owner of this site. along with my business partner and CEO, Hector Torres. We have invested a lot of time and money in Fort Lauderdale and in this site over the last 12 years. We are committed to this great city and are committed to enhancing and elevating this city and this site, which is part of our 6-acre waterfront Nautico district in downtown Fort Lauderdale. As developers and builders, we look to make a big and positive impact on the communities that we are in. We work with the best architects, designers, and consultants in the world in creating our world-class projects. Most recently, we did that in Dania Beach with our 301-unit Oasis Point community that we delivered last year. And we did that in Miami Gardens this year with our 341-unit Laguna Gardens community. As a company, we are design-driven. We focus on original art, wellness, technology, sustainability, and we like to emphasize nature in all of our projects. As many of you know, we successfully preserved our 10-story tall rain tree and brought it close to the waterfront and the Riverwalk for the public to enjoy at a considerable expense of millions of dollars. You will be happy to know that our rain tree is now thriving. This project before you is world-class. We have an incredible team in place, including world-renowned architectural firm Arquitectonica, EDSA, our landscape architect and the designer of Fort Lauderdale's Riverwalk, and our incredible team of engineers, designers, and consultants. We take a hands-on approach to our projects, from acquisition to design to placemaking, and we are the actual builders who build our institutionally sized assets. We are excited to activate this part of downtown Fort Lauderdale that has been downtrodden for decades with a branded hotel and residences that will have curated cultural experiences. We are excited to highlight and promote Fort Lauderdale's place as the boating capital of the world by preserving and enhancing our marina. And we are thrilled to complete the Riverwalk in an exciting and eventful way. We spent over 2 years with members of our community to get their input and support so that we can create the best possible community. The design before you reflects those years of meetings. I want our supporters to stand up so that I can acknowledge and thank you for all of your help and ideas. Thank you, everyone. We are committed to making a huge and positive impact on the city's downtown with this community that we are creating. I promise you that when we are done, we will all be proud of what we created together. Thank you.
Thank you. So on your screen, you can see that this is a site plan level 3. I just want to clarify, it is a site plan level 3 because it's a waterway use and we are asking for a parking reduction. But it does go on to City Commission because there are deviations that only the City Commission can grant. So after we leave the Planning and Zoning Board, we will present to the City Commission. The proposed project before you is a 560 residential unit product with 119 hotel rooms, a 90-boat slip marina, 17,897 square feet of commercial use, 8,687 square feet of restaurant, a 6,443 square foot cafe with an associated parking reduction, and we are in the downtown rack. So I know you're all familiar with it. I think everybody's been here. As Ossie had mentioned, the Raintree Riverwalk Residences project was previously approved, and it's immediately to the west of this project. Nautica is very unique in the fact that it is probably one of the larger sites that's being presented for development. It's almost 4 acres. It's 3.82 acres. Most of the projects that are slated for development are much smaller. You'll see them usually around an acre, maybe a little bit shy of an acre, a little bit more than an acre. But what makes this so unique is it's such an impactful piece of property on the riverfront. And I think, and Bernardo is going to speak to you in just a little bit with Arquitectonica, about the impact that we believe this makes in a positive way. We've also shown you context. I think context is very important to look at what is around us. As I said, this is a property that sits in the downtown rack. It is west of the railroad tracks, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But you can see that it's in line when we get to the project itself. You can see that it's in line with the other projects that have been approved. Some of them are built, some of them are under construction right now, and some of them are proposed. So as Asi mentioned, this is the Nautico district. The project itself is called Nautica, but we've called this district Nautico because it's an homage to the water and to the marine industry, and of course, the preservation of the marina that is there, although it is going to be upgraded and will be state of the art. So the future land use, as I mentioned, it is in the middle of the downtown rack. What you see on the left-hand side for the future land use, that is the downtown rack, and you can see it's squarely in the middle of it. It's not on the edge. For the zoning, we are in the rack SMU. And as I mentioned, the railroad tracks divide the rack CC. If we were in the rack CC, there's a different set of rules that apply, and a lot of the developments that you've seen go up are in the rack CC. This property is immediately adjacent to the rack CC. So it is in the near downtown area of the downtown master plan. So those are the guidelines that we have to live by, and that's why we are asking for some deviations from the downtown master plan. As I said, if this was in the RAC CC, it would not require most of those deviations. So the downtown New River master plan is another plan that the city has considered, but it was never adopted. So that was done in 2008. It is something that we consider when we look at development on the water, but it is not an adopted plan, so it's not something that you're required to request deviations from. And this project does pay homage to it in the fact that it's a very nautical design. So here, I'm just giving you, again, context, some of the projects. Some of them you recognize them because they're already built. Riverlofts is immediately to the right on the screen. Hanover Riverwalk in the rear. You've got Harbor at New River, that's already built as well. Society is directly across the river. And you can see here in the forefront on the screen, you can see if you've eaten at Pirate Republic, you know that red roof. And of course, the existing marina that's there today that spans the entire 3.82 acres. And immediately to the west of that is where the Raintree Riverwalk Residences project, which is, we're in the process of pulling building permits right now. The construction drawings on that are done, and that is a project that is getting ready to break ground. And this is the Raintree Riverwalk Residences, as Asi mentioned. We did move the Raintree. The Raintree is thriving. We were excited to move the Raintree closer to the Riverwalk so it can be enjoyed by all. So the Riverwalk meanders around that Raintree. And this project, of course, will be a continuation of the Riverwalk. So that's the project that's adjacent. And again, this is just another contextual drawing. So you can see here, just again for compatibility, from a compatibility standpoint, you can see that the buildings all around it, again, right in the middle, you can see the marina, the existing marina. That's where this project is proposed, and it's between other buildings that are either approved. The only one that's not approved is the one that you see in the rear. That's Art House. That's under consideration by the city right now. So we started with a little bit of a different project, and as Asi said, we've been at this for a little greater than 2 years. So I just wanted to just sort of gloss over the fact we had started with a few more units. We took about 135 units out of the project through the design process and working with staff. We also reduced the hotel room by, the hotel by 29 rooms. It's now at 119 rooms, which is really considered a boutique hotel. And then, of course, the restaurant, retail, and whatnot. They've all been massaged a little bit, and a lot of that was done to bring the parking reduction request down to a smaller percentage. So, as I said, one of the big challenges, one of the great benefits, and one of the big challenges of this project was that we worked very hard to preserve the marina. The marina, as you can see, is state-of-the-art. The one that's there today, I know a lot of people, I know personally a lot of people that keep their boats in that marina. I get that question a lot. What's going to happen with the marina? Am I still going to have somewhere to keep the boat? The answer to that is yes. We're very excited to do that. The marina's a tremendous asset for the Venice of America, but it also created a lot of challenges on the site plan. And I think Bernardo and Architectonica team did a really phenomenal job of trying to work around that marina to preserve it for the future. And you can see that that marina really interfaces with the water, and it also is essentially a standalone building, but it does have a hotel on it. And the hotel is a large number of the deviations that we were requested. You can see, actually in the bottom screen, the hotel is on the right of the marina. That's what triggered a large number of the deviation requests, because there's no way to put the hotel in the middle of the marina the way you would a normal building podium. Because it's a working marina, it requires it to be on the side. So it does have 6 wet slips and 84 dry stack slips included in the marina. And those slips on the exterior, when the marina is not in use, they're also for the benefit of the restaurant. You know, there's not a lot of places. We've lost a lot of our waterfront uses over the years. So, you know, I don't know if you've ever tried to take a boat to Coconuts, you know, you really almost can't ever pull in because there's so few places that you can go by water. So it's nice to have the opportunity to have another restaurant, cafe, retail experience that's on the water, and we're excited about what will come in the future. So I wanted to just talk briefly about parking. This is a mixed use, so of course the way the ULDR works is that the ULDR makes you look at each individual use, and each individual use has to be parked as an individual use. But when you do a mixed use product, you're always going to work to try to figure out, you know, if you're someone that's living in that condo, you're probably not, you don't need another parking space to go park and get your boat. So we always do a mixed-use study. And what the mixed-use study did, and Joaquin Vargas is here, who's one of the best parking and traffic consultants around, and he's happy to answer questions, I'm sure, if you have them. But what that study showed is that while the ULDR, as each standalone use together, would require 1,940 parking spaces, the mixed-use study showed that we only need 1,320 parking spaces. What we did is we took that number and then we said, well, why don't we just raise that a little bit so that we're not asking for a large parking reduction, and we reduced that down to a 17% parking reduction, providing 1,599 parking spaces. I will note that when we did the Raintree Riverwalk project, we worked very closely with the neighbors to the west, and they had asked us to achieve a 26% or better parking reduction for that project. So this one at 17% is even better than what Raintree did. I do want to also note, and I think this is important, that the residential itself is fully parked. So it's really the mixed use, the other sections that where the mixed use comes in, where you've got the restaurant together with the marina and things like that. The residential piece is fully parked. So I'm going to ask Bernardo to come up as we start talking about the site plan. I do want to just share on this screen very carefully one of the images that we did not have an opportunity to update, but I want to show you here, there is a break, as I said, between the marina and the podium that includes the parking, and you can see there's a paseo. That paseo is beautifully designed concrete, stamped concrete that goes through it. That is intended to actually go all the way out to the river. So you will see that right now it looks like it's pavement. It looks like it just goes in an east-west direction. It will actually go all the way to the north, to continue on to the river, that same design. I just thought that was a good slide to share that. Bernardo, why don't you come up?
Thank you. Maybe this is an opportunity to give an outline of the content of the project, since content is a very important part of architecture. To the right of this image, you can see the yard, the boat storage facility. It is the sort of very Fort Lauderdale part of this project because it continues the tradition of boating. And it works by the boats coming in and being picked up and taken into this vertical storage space, but these are fairly large boats that can be fit here. And that is the marina frontage. It is between this facility and the rest of the development, that is that throughway, that paseo that crosses north-south from Third Avenue across to Second Avenue. And it is from it that there's a drop-off on one side to the condominium building. And I'm referring to, maybe I'll point here, yeah, right there. And to one side the hotel, the other side the condo.
I'm gonna give you another 2 minutes, but it's over, so just, we've already gone to,
Oh, I'm gonna go quick.
yeah, that's
And then
okay.
there's,
The applicant says 15 minutes.
and there's an additional residential, sorry, and there's a.
I'm gonna give you both more time, but I'm just letting you know. It's,
Okay.
all right?
Sorry about
Thanks, no worries.
Yes. Everything you see in pink is restaurants and cafes and retail along Third Avenue, all the way to the water, where you see the restaurant of the hotel facing the water, and way at the other end, you see the rental lobby for the additional residential building. In between is the parking. You can see in this view, you see the railroad track and a service drive that leads to the marina and the thruway. And on the landscape decks, one is over the yard, the storage space next to the hotel and across from the condominium, and the other one is sort of more of a sports complex for swimming and playing, and that is between the condo and the rental. You see here the view from the opposite side. Of course, we removed in order to show that there's a building that is to happen across from us. And you see here the same image, and here you see the context of the three towers as they march down. And this is the view from the water, and the view from the city on the opposite side. And you see where the context of the railroad and the roadway are. And you can see here the view of the lighting effect in the building. This is the retail entrance and the hotel entrance. And where there's a cafe on one side. You see the lobby to the condominium. To the other side is the balance of the retail that you can see here in these views. This is the plaza with a high ceiling, that with the steps that rise to the floodplain, of course, with planters. And this creates a high space upon arrival to those retailers. And the other one is the rest of the food and beverage that we offer. This is the main plaza at the corner that leads to the lobbies for the residential building. There's both a drop-off and a pedestrian entrance, and the balance of it is additional retail. And this is a summary of the deviations that we are requesting in order to accomplish this project. And this outline shows you the different uses and how we're combining hotel, condo, retail, and multifamily into one complex with fairly large sky gardens connecting all the buildings over the garage or over the yard. And you can see here some of the other elevations of the project and some of the explanation of the context. And this is what shows you where the podium is and all the activities that happen in the podium. These are just straight on elevations aside from the renderings, but they do show you the rest of the design of the building and where are the levels of parking that we have tucked in between uses at both ends. And the parking is rather discreet in those areas. And this gives you the different views that I mentioned. And I think that summarizes on the right, you see the three towers and the podia that connect the three towers with the different swimming pools and pickleball courts, tennis courts, and entertainment space. I think that summarizes. I think we have, of course, the explanation of all the elevations in the project.
All right,
Thank
we're
you
good.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Can you just state your name, sir? Just state your name.
Sorry,
so
my name is Bernardo Forbrescia. I'm a principal of Arquitectonica.
Thank you.
And what I'm gonna do is, do you have more to go,
Well-
or you want to rebuttal? Save some time at the end.
I would like to save some time, but I'd like to just cover quickly. We went through pretty quickly the deviations. I'm happy to explain them in more detail, or I'm happy to not. It's up to the board.
What? Well, do we want to take public first, and then I'll give you a minute
Sure.
or two at the end,
Sure.
a couple minutes at the end to explain everything?
I
would you prefer
yes,
that?
I can do that. But
You
can
tell
I
me.
do want to cover one thing because this is very
Sure,
important.
go ahead.
I would just like to address the Riverwalk. We worked very, very closely with the Riverwalk Trust on the Riverwalk. What we did is we created multiple opportunities for pedestrians to work through the site. We followed the design guidelines for the Riverwalk for an elevated Riverwalk that goes over the marina, but there is also an opportunity to walk at grade through the marina, and there's also an opportunity to walk through the Paseo, and there's also an opportunity to walk along the back of the project. Well, it's really not the back of the project, but along Southwest Fifth Street. I think it's a very important image. I just wanted to share that because it is something that we spent a great deal of time on. So you can see here, you can take the Riverwalk, which is true to the design guidelines. I believe Gina Ellis is here to address that. That is something that was very well received by the Riverwalk. So there are ample opportunities, and I did just wanted to show those last few slides. That's a letter from Gina. We had a lot of public participation, a lot of public presentations. We did present to HPB and also to the Marine Advisory Board, and it was very well received by all the boards. And I'm happy to come back if I could reserve time if we need to discuss the deviations. I'm happy to.
Yes, that would be great.
Thank you very much.
All right, so I'm going to open it up to the public, and we have quite a few speakers here. We have 3 minutes apiece for just speakers, and then 5 minutes if you represent an association. The first person I have is Vanessa Apotheker. Am I pronouncing it right? Oh, good. See? Okay. All right. That should give me some points.
Hi, Vanessa Apotheker. I'm the president of Tarpon River Civic Association, where this project is. The team came and presented to us on June 20th. And we did not have an official vote with our association. We had no vote with the association. The board, we did not have an official vote, but 6 out of 7 of the board members are not opposed to the project, and that's it.
Thank you. Bob Swindell.
Thank you, Vice Chair Cohen, board members, and thank you for your service. I know it's a tough job. You have a lot of details to review and long meetings, and I've served on the Beach Advisory Board and other boards for the city over the years, and I know what it's like to serve, and thank you for what you do for the city of Fort Lauderdale. I first met Ossie Simbel about 12 years ago when he initially presented this project. He's always looked to bring a world-class feel and flavor to this project. He and I spoke initially because I wasn't real wild about the design of the project, but I wasn't buying a unit there. But Ossie has always strived to make this something very special for Fort Lauderdale. A good friend of mine over the years, I would complain about the blandness of our skyline. And I would tell Terry Stiles, you know, we need an interesting skyline, Terry. And Terry would respond to me, Bob, interesting is expensive. I know what my tenants are willing to pay, and we build for our tenant base. And he was very successful at doing that. But something like this project will really give us a unique flair. It does honor the tradition of the Venice of America. I live at 432 Charlie Avenue. I live in Sailboat Bend. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale at a time we had a lot of working marinas in downtown, and that time has gone by the wayside. But what has transformed downtown is pretty amazing, and I think this project really adds to that. Ossie has worked closely with the stakeholders in this. His initial project, that working marina, was really important to the Marine Industry Association. The last, dry stack marina in downtown Fort Lauderdale. We have all these residents that move to our city because they want a waterborne lifestyle, but really don't have a convenient place to keep their boats. And Ossie, from day one, has committed to making the marina work as a part of this. I was involved in Second Century Broward back in the 80s and early 90s, and we did a lot of charrettes about the Riverwalk and what it could be as a linear park. We were afraid then of the canyonization of the new river. Unfortunately, some of that has happened, but Ossie has tried to work with his designers in pulling some buildings back from the river to avoid that canyon effect as much as possible, and orienting the hotel so you really do take advantage of the water effect as much as possible, and orienting the hotel so you really do take advantage of the waterfront and the new river. I walk the Riverwalk every day with my Labrador retrievers and my husband John. We're out there. I've watched that rain tree thrive. And again, Ossie has put a lot into this project, but he's followed through and he's honored every commitment he's made. And to me, that means a lot, and that's one of the reasons I'm here this evening. So I hope you vote in favor of this project.
Thank you. Doug Coolman.
Good evening, planning and zone members. As you know, I've been involved with the tree ordinance in Fort Lauderdale for over 3 years, and I think we're next on the agenda tonight. I really wasn't planning to speak, but I think I need to point a couple of things out. As you know, with sea level rise and state statutes have made the protection of our old growth canopy, needed to say, difficult. With this said, the city is limited in what they can do, as you know, to protect our tree canopy. The Planning and Zoning Board is, however, a tool that can be used to protect our canopy. This project before you tonight, requiring relief from zoning requirements, provides an opportunity to effect design changes, and especially around 3rd Avenue, to protect a significant amount of our oak trees. Needless to say, above what is allowed for code will provide the opportunity, needless to say, denying what is, or allowing only what is allowed per code will provide the opportunity to save significant vegetation. The plans as proposed remove all the vegetation, some 130 trees on this site, even ones in the road right away. These requested variations or relief from the code allow overbuilding on the site and destruction of vegetation. And they need to come back to the P&Z board with a new site plan with the team they have assembled. They can certainly achieve their goals and protect the canopy on this site. I urge you not to move forward this project tonight, but to ask them to go back and take a good hard look at the vegetation on this site and protect our canopy. Thank you.
Can you please state your name, sir? Can you please state your name for the record, sir? Thank you.
Doug Coolman. Thank you.
Gina Ellis.
Good evening, Board. My name is Gina Ellis. I'm here on behalf of Riverwalk, which is city land, public land. The Riverwalk was designed in 1988 with specific guidelines. In fairness, we have been at the table for 12 years, as many of you have, looking at this project. I will tell you, we have not always been on the same page, but I think that they have made a concerted effort to make the Riverwalk what it's supposed to be. We asked for some conditions. They, in May, when they met with us, have agreed to it and designed them in there. We have 2 other items that are on the table, and I'm going to bring them up again. One is we have made the recommendation that the land that's on the west side of the property where the rain tree is be donated to the city as open space, green space for the public. The second one is to continue to stay at the table with the city of Fort Lauderdale to effect a crossing on the railroad tracks, across the railroad tracks, to meet up with the related property on the other side, which is a continuation of the Riverwalk. Related has built up on their side to that point. We would like for this connection to be made on behalf of the Riverwalk. Thank you.
I have a can I ask Gina something?
Sure.
Here we go.
Gina, when you say that the Related has built up on their side, is there something that Related did on their side that is not being done on this side with this proposal?
Together, along with the city, they're going to have to apply to get a crossing of the railroad tracks. And we're just asking that they all work together to achieve that. It's effective on the north side and done. There's not a reason that it can't be done on the south side. It just takes a little effort.
Thank you.
John Cotter. I want to say welcome back.
Evening
board members. I'm John Cotter. I'm a member of the Sailboat Bend Civic Association, but I am not representing the association tonight, so I only get 3 minutes. I just wanted to mention that I'm very familiar with this project. I have reviewed the plans. I understand the reason for the variances, and as a boater and a resident of downtown Fort Lauderdale who walks the Riverwalk every day, twice a day, I'm really pleased that they have incorporated the walk of the Riverwalk that goes in front of the marina as well as through it and behind it. I'd urge you to approve the motion and move it on to the commission. Thank you.
Natalia Barranco, name is familiar.
Hi there, Natalia Veronco, resident in Crescent Park. First time seeing the project. It's just same day as the AG group is going to discuss the tree ordinance. Little disappointed that 30-ish trees are going to get whacked. But this is a perfect example for everyone. It's a zoning issue, right? Because it's only 10% green space. When we look at the area and the renderings, nice job, by the way, on the renderings. It looks good because everything's green around it, except the footprint of the building. And it's, for such a tower, zoning is an issue for us. So, I looked at the disposition plan, and it's kind of unclear, but it looks like there's 17 specimen trees, and it looks like only one was accounted for. In the packet, I did not see the arborist report or anything that is required at DRC, so that's it.
Can I ask a question, please? Oh. Hi, Jeannie. You mentioned about the trees, and I know that most of the trees are on the west side, along the west side currently of that lot, correct? Have you looked at it, and do you think there's a way that they could be saved? In other words, a tree in the center is going to have to go, or they have to be moved because you're building the tower there. But there are a lot right on the border. Do you think there's a way to redesign? Does it look like offhand something could be done to save some more of those, or not? I mean, is there?
Well, there's approximately 80 sable palms, or state tree, that can be easily transplanted onto other sites.
More interested in oaks, actually. I mean, sable palms are pretty much everywhere, but
There's
oaks.
17 specimen trees, which I think like 15 of them are oaks. So Doug and Fred went to the site. They could tell you more what's there and what can be relocated.
Okay, then. Thank you.
I'm busy between my work and AG.
Okay. Thanks again.
Bernard Fort Brescia.
For the record, that was my sister.
I know.
Full disclosure, everybody.
I figured that one out. She's been here a couple times. Bernard Fort Brescia. Oh, okay. Dan, this handwriting, it's not me, it's the handwriting. Lindblade? That's okay, he just has to, he writes like a doctor.
I'm not a doctor.
All right.
My
Not
name's Dan.
yet.
Yeah, hi, board. My name's Dan Lindblade. I live at 416 Southwest First Avenue, so I'm about a block and a half to the east from the property that we're talking about. And there has been a lot of growth going on the south side of the river, I'm happy to say. And I can tell you that some of the concerns that I had initially with the project, after reviewing it and after hearing more comments today, I don't have any of those concerns right now. I was really concerned about the Riverwalk. And my good friend Gina Ellis over here, she's been taking care of that, because that's the problem for me. I do a lot of walking, as does Mr. Swindell, and you can't go to the west from my property because there's no connectivity there. So this will be a great opportunity for folks to really be at an elevated level and see what's going on with the marina, and also go below. So I really like the way the architects have weaved that into the project. Hopefully that will come through. You know, I don't come before you guys very often. I try to stay away because there's been so many projects over the years. 17 years I've been back here in South Florida. And, but this one and this specific area with the rain tree and how we had to deal with all of that, and then this parcel, how it's going to have the marina there, it is critical that we get it right. And I think that this is the closest I've seen to getting it right for a project of this size. And I like the retail aspect of it, the hotel aspect of it. We really don't have any hotel on that side of the river right now. And with the new federal courthouse a little further to the south that's going to be coming up, or I saw them putting the pilings in yesterday, we're going to need some hotel space close by, and I think this would be absolutely wonderful opportunity for us to move it forward. So my opinion is that you should be in support of moving it forward. If there are other things we need to work out, I'm sure that we can work them out, but I think we got to keep the ball rolling. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Krishna Royer? Oh, gotcha, okay. David Shear?
Good evening, Board. I'm happy to be here. This is my first time speaking at a planning and zoning event, so please bear with me. I come to you as a citizen of Fort Lauderdale. I'm here with my wife, Robin Shear. Born and raised in North Miami Beach, moved my family to Plantation, where my kids were born and raised. They went out to college, and now we're empty nesters, and we were thrilled to come east to Fort Lauderdale. We live in Victoria Park. Prior to Victoria Park, we live on Isle of Venice at Seaside Villas. I was the treasurer there of the HOA. We sold that house opportunistically after 2 years and moved into Victoria Park. I will tell you, I had a boat. I was fortunate enough to have a deeded dock when I was at Isle of Venice. I don't have a deeded dock now at Victoria Park, obviously. I looked into the marinas. I looked to that specific marina. There was no availability. I will tell you, when I was on the board at Seaside Villas, even though it was against the HOA rules, and it is against a lot of the HOA rules in the Isles, I will tell you that the renting of docks is very commonplace. And they go at a very high premium, and you have all kinds of people coming onto your land against the HOA's rules, and there's a lot of liability. You have opportunity for trespassers, people that are having parties at all hours of the night off the back of their boats. My point being is that there is a shortage for quality marinas in Fort Lauderdale, and we are supposed to be the Isle, we're supposed to be the Venice of America. The New River is the crown jewel of Fort Lauderdale. And being a lifelong resident of South Florida, I can tell you that we are continually competing for the entertainment dollar, the hospitality dollar, the real estate dollar, and the attraction of West Palm Beach and Miami. Progress will happen. It continues to happen in Miami. Miami is outpacing Fort Lauderdale residentially from a hospitality standpoint, and it's time for Fort Lauderdale to step up and meet that challenge and meet that need with putting quality developments and quality developers onto our crown jewel, which is the New River. I do not work for Symbol. I am not a vendor for Symbol. I have no financial interest in this project. I'm just a citizen of Fort Lauderdale who moved to Fort Lauderdale from a suburb, which, as you all know, many of my friends and neighbors in the west side, when their kids go off to college and they become empty nesters, they do come to Fort Lauderdale. We come, like everybody else during the pandemic. I bought a boat. I had to sell that boat because I had nowhere to put it when I moved to Victoria Park. So I highly encourage you to approve this plan. You can see that you're working with developers that are more than accommodating. They spent, I don't know, millions of dollars to move the rain tree. I'm sure if there were comments on architectural or agricultural, which I know is important, I'm sure they'll work with the board as they have so far with the city in moving that rain tree. It was no small event. I saw it on the news. I saw it in the papers. I am here because I get the email from Steve Glassman, and I follow the emails, and I saw this on the docket, and I said, you know, I need to really speak. I didn't even know that there was a south side of the New River. There is no river walk, in my opinion, because I've never been on the south side of the New River, because you can't pedestrian walk on the New River on the south side. Maybe you can where there's that little park, but I will tell you, I've been here for 55 years. I'm revealing my age. I've never been on the south side of the New River as a pedestrian, never. So if I look at this site plan, it's really encouraging the amount of time, effort, design they put in including the development of the Riverwalk, and to architecturally plan how to put that in front of a marina, preserve the existing marina, make it with more boat slips, make more availability, to me is just outstanding. So
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
highly recommend that you approve this site plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can you just state your name? I don't think I got it. Thank you.
He did, but I'll show you.
David Shear,
Thank you.
Sheir. Progress will happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time and giving your valuable insight and perspective on this.
I have someone who left their name off, but their email is Sean Dang. Doug? Sean Doug 14, is that you? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Sean Douglas here. I received my master's degree in real estate development. Growing up, the Riverwalk was essentially my backyard. Born and raised down here, and I've been following this project for some time now. So I just wanted to stand up here and say I'm excited for what is to come with this project, and I think it'll truly bring life to the Riverwalk. So I request that you please approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Julianne Mangano. Okay, thanks. Kyle, this is horrible handwriting. Kyle Tuthill? Tuthill. Okay. You're with the architect, you said?
No, like Tuthill Architecture.
Oh, gotcha. Go ahead.
My name's Kyle Tuthill. I am a resident of Tarpon River. I'm also on the board of Tarpon River Civic Association as a director. I am a development manager for a competing developer, Styles Corporation. I'm speaking as a resident of Tarpon River. I do support this. My family and I go on a ton of bike rides and always wish the Riverwalk connected our neighborhood more so to the actual south side of the Riverwalk. We wish there were more restaurants, more cafes. So we really look forward to this hopefully being approved, and I just want to say I support this and hope you
family, and be able to see projects like this is exciting, I think, for the future. I also did go to school at FAU, so we had a lot with the urban planning, and I guess the projection of what the city will look like, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years from now. And I believe and I support this project from the due diligence that the developer has taken to integrate a lot of the necessities that our city has, and also connecting the south side of that Riverwalk, which I think is a critical part of the city to allow and open that up for the future. And yeah, it's exciting. So I'm here to urge you guys to please support this project and allow growth to be enabled in this lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Anna Marie Torres?
Hi, I'm the civil engineer and filled it out in case there's any questions.
Gotcha. Thank you. Ann Wiley?
It is now almost totally covered. Now we'll have some more. So I don't know about the riverfront part of this project. It sounds like it's going to be very well planned. My concern, as it is with many others, is the trees and the green space. Everybody, even our development-loving folks, like some green. We can't have our entire city, downtown city, be concrete and buildings and glass. So I would hope that there could be a bit of redesigning to leave the mature trees, 130 I've heard said, 130 trees, We need that. We all need that. We all need green space. This sets a precedent that large developments can come in, take down all the trees, concrete property line to property line. I'm sure they'll put in a few, little palm trees, decorative. So I would be for redesigning to keep the trees. We all need that. And I'd also like to bring up a point that I hope you're aware of, and I hope that the builder is aware of, that across the nation, and it is federal law in Canada, and it is also law in many cities across the country, that new development needs to have bird-safe glass. Has the developer ever heard of bird-safe glass? Has anybody heard of bird-safe glass? Yeah. So 1 billion birds a year die flying into glass, 1 billion. In Canada, it is federal law that all federal buildings and municipal buildings and state buildings must be built with bird-safe glass. It's a huge industry. Some of you might want to invest in it. It's a good investment. There are many ways to make glass visible to birds. A lot of people care about birds, and a lot of people that come to Florida to be a tourist here care about birds. It's not just for the plastic grass and the nightclubs and the drinking and the boating. It's for our ecology, and it matters. And developers that care develop in a way that is not only for people, but for the nature that we need. So I hope the developers, and I hope the board here looks into bird-safe glass. It's a huge thing. It's many, many cities across the country incorporate that into their building style. I was just out in Seattle, Washington at the new Seattle Aquarium, and the whole north wall is glass, and it is all bird-safe glass. So this is not a weird thing. It's pretty common. So I hope this is the correct board to address this to, and please do think about saving our trees. The fourth topic tonight is on saving our trees. So it's interesting that the first topic would be on taking out 130 of them. That's my thoughts on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. B.J. McKenzie? And if there's anybody that I missed, please raise your hand if there's, okay, did you fill out one of these forms? Please fill out one of these forms. Thank you so much. Go ahead. Ms.
Hi,
McKenzie.
everyone. My name is B.J. McKenzie, and I think I've seen your faces over the years because I have walked with Ossie for 12 years. And I consider Ossie really a visionary. I don't think of him as a developer because this project brings to our city. And I work at the Art Museum, and I say to myself, all that development along there fits with what we're trying to do for culture for our city. I like the completion of the Riverwalk. I think that's important for those of us who live along there. I ask you to approve Ossie's project. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have the other people that signed up? Thank you. Thomas Ernest?
I'm strongly opposed to the decrease in parking for
Can
this.
you just state your name and address
Thomas Ernest.
for the record? Thank you.
I'm strongly opposed to the decrease in parking for this development. I live in an 18-story building built in 1965. During the season, we don't have enough parking. Let me repeat that. We don't have enough parking. Forget what the highly paid consultants and so-called experts say about parking. This is typical of this kind of development. Don't approve this parking decrease. It cannot be good for the city. Residents of the building will probably want more parking that won't be available with the developer's proposal. Plus, patrons of the restaurants and other retailers will be challenged by the lack of parking. encourage you to turn down this current proposal because of the lack of parking and other nuances. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask him a question?
Sure.
Was it Fred? Tom, sorry. How many uses are in your building, or is it strictly residential?
It's a strictly residential building. I think it's about 170 units.
Okay. And why I ask that question is, as the newest person on P&Z, I happen to be a realtor, and I've seen a lot of development over the last 10 years that didn't have enough parking spaces for the residences. For example, there were buildings that went up that I had a customer for a penthouse, and they were trying to use 2 unit. You know, for a 4,000 square foot, they're not going to have 2 cars. So I've seen that a lot, and that was one of the things on my first list. And in looking at the parking situation here, the amount of units for parking that are dedicated to the condo owners made me feel comfortable in that same question that you had. There's so many residential that don't have enough parking. So I just wanted to share with you that in this particular one, yes, parking reductions, and you'll hear my comments toward the end, but this one, unlike your building, that now people have more cars than they did in 1965, and most of those buildings do have that parking issue, and they're all up and down the Galt and everywhere else. This one, from the number of units that are going to be in the condo with the number of parking, I felt comfortable with that portion of the parking, just so you know.
Can I respond?
Sure.
Yeah, you have time. Go ahead.
I'm a 40-year realtor. I'm a developer. I've developed property. I've dealt with the engineers. I've dealt with the city. I've dealt with the county. And we're more dependent on cars in Fort Lauderdale than we ever have been. And my wife and I have 1 car. Thank God. Because if we had 2, so
I can sell you a unit
respect your opinion.
that has 3 parking spaces.
I respect your opinion, but you're not convincing me.
Okay. Well, I'm one person and I had 4, but now I'm down to 2.
All right. Fred Stressel? Stressa?
Like Nassau.
Yeah, Stressa.
This is kind of unusual for me to be on this side of the podium after 25 years on your board and another 15 or 20 on the Board of Adjustment. I'm going to take a different approach to this because it's unpopular because very few people have brought it up, but 35 years ago, I was hired by the owners of Shirttail Charlie's to design a serpentine walk on the west side of the project, in the right-of-way and on their project around the existing oak trees. I don't recall how many of you had said you had been to the site, but what disturbs me more about anything is that we've been romanced about how beautiful the building is, how unique it is, how it's providing services for everybody, and there are only a couple of people that happen to be here for the next item on the agenda that want to talk about the trees. And the trees on the west side of this project are absolutely magnificent. And it's easy for me to say because I don't have any money in this investment, but it seems to me as though that what you're faced with tonight is to make a decision on a huge building that is built to the setback lines, that is 40 stories high and does not contribute any open space to the public. And it would seem to me as though that the same kind of building could be designed with a 40 or 50 foot easement on the west side of the project adjacent to the street that recalls all the oak trees that are there.
You did great.
It's a big choice on your part. I just don't think that if you strip out the few trees that they've got on the rendering, that this looks any different than downtown Fort Lauderdale or downtown New York City.
Can you just state your name, please, sir?
Yeah, I'd do better than that.
Thank you. Yeah,
All right.
but you gotta state it on the record.
Yeah. Okay.
You gotta state your name on the record. Can you state it in the mic?
Like Nassau.
You got it?
Yep.
Did it pick up? Okay.
All right, everybody got it? Good. Eric Stern.
My first time here as well. Eric Stern, live at 605 Southwest 7th Avenue, so I am a local Tarpon River resident. I'm actually here talking about Ozzie Symbol. I'm an engineer, local business, and I have an 18-year working relationship with Ozzie. And when I saw that he was moving forward, I said I had to come speak up after seeing his project, seeing what he's delivered, and knowing that he has always come through and delivered a great product. So in a private market, when we choose who we want to work with, he is someone who I've always chosen to work with and someone who's always delivered on his promises. On a personal level, I look forward to the Riverwalk being completed, the retail, the entertainment district. I think it's going to be a great add to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Hector Torres. Yeah. I'll announce it.
Good evening, board members. Hector Torres, 1108 Northeast 1st Street. I'm here as a resident, as a citizen, and representing my wife, Monica, and this neighborhood. When we came here from, I came from New York City, my wife came from Columbia, and we settled into the city of Fort Lauderdale. It was a big reason, and the reason was because we knew this was an up-and-coming city that was not Miami and wasn't Palm Beach, and I don't think we should be. I think we should be Fort Lauderdale, and I think Fort Lauderdale, in the vision that I see here, that has been worked on for many, many years. I can tell you because I'm the other half of Ozzie Symbol. I am Hector Torres, the CEO of Symbol DLT, and I can tell you that we've spent a visionary amount of time on this project to bring to the neighborhood, to the city of Fort Lauderdale, and to the community all kinds of levels. And I think it's important for you to know where this all started. Where this started is that Ozzie and I would talk a lot about the Venice of America. What does that mean? What does that mean that we're the Venice of America? I don't get it. Venice doesn't have roads. It only has canals, and it's very much a part of the internal communication of the city. We saw this in Fort Lauderdale. We also saw our developer friends bringing up buildings that were ho-hum. They look like Miami. They look like Palm Beach. No different. And they were destroying marinas. So what happens to the integration of the waterworks with the land and the nature of water with the land? Ozzie Symbol's always talked to me about nature, and what are we doing about that? How do we integrate all of these human experiences into one? And what you're seeing here is many, many, many years of that thought process that brings an elevated development that takes in consideration the public use. For example, completing the Riverwalk. For example, investing a lot of money in the rain tree so that people can enjoy it for what it is and enjoy it in front of the Riverwalk, where they can bring their children and their animals and their mascots and everybody to be able to enjoy it, to have the Riverwalk be an elevated experience. This is the vision that came to be. You should approve the project because, in our opinion, the vision was we need to bring the city of Fort Lauderdale into a world-class experience, and this project does that.
Thank you so much.
I have a question for the testimony. Hector, is it?
Hector Torres, yes.
Mr. Torres, you said that this has been a vision and in the works for many, many years, and you've devoted a lot of thought and time to it. And apparently there have been people who've been working on this for quite some time. But I heard the Civic Association president say that you just saw this in June.
Why don't you wait? You ask him a question, and then she can come up and answer whatever.
So how many meetings have you had with the Tarpon River Civic Association on this project?
I can tell you that it hasn't just been Tarpon River. It's been all the community meetings we've had. It's been numerous. I think Stephanie can talk more about it in detail. I can't, but I know that I've personally attended many meetings of our neighbors and our people around us to help understand what they wanted, what their concerns were, and we incorporated, if not all of them, most of everything they commented on.
Okay, then I will hold my question for when Stephanie comes back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
Does anybody, before you answer the question, Steph, let me just, is there anybody else from the public? Oh, Tamara Hernandez, I'm sorry. You want to wait until she answers the question, Tamara? Go ahead, if you want it. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
See if that answers your question, and Tamara Hernandez will step up to the podium.
Very brief.
Thank you.
Tamara Hernandez. I'm a resident of the north part of Fort Lauderdale. Sorry? Closer? Like this? So I'm living in the north part of the city, but I'm working in downtown, and I feel like we need some projects like this. We need the true Class A hotel, definitely retail for Fort Lauderdale, and restaurants as well. And I cannot speak for other people, but for me personally and my friends, we prefer, sometimes we work till late and we're tired, so we don't want to go to Miami, we don't want to go to West Palm Beach, and we want to stay here and we want to spend money for Lauderdale. So I hope this project will be approved, realized, and I hope to spend my time there somewhere soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Marilyn, do you want to follow up with?
I'm
with
looking at the chart
Ms.
here.
Toothaker?
Yes,
Okay.
Ms. Toothaker?
Do you want to address, before you answer Marilyn's question, do you want to address anything that's been said up till now? And you said that there was something else that you wanted to.
Was that the last speaker?
That's the last speaker.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna close. As long as anybody else, is there anybody else? Oh, you, that's okay. Don't worry. You can answer her question. I'm just closing to the public, the speaking part. But you can answer her question afterwards. But Ms. Toothaker, do you want to address the question from Marilyn first?
Yes, of course. So this is a list of the meetings we had. These are the advertised meetings. Of course, we had many stakeholder meetings in addition to these. But I think when Vanessa was referencing the last meeting we had, that we presented to a larger group, but we did meet with the Tarpon River Civic Association going back to 2023. So we met with Esplanade in January of 23, Downtown Fort Lauderdale Civic Association in January of 23, Tarpon River, May of 23, Riverwalk Committee, March of 24, Riverwalk Committee again, April of 24, Marine Advisory Board, May 2nd, 24, Historic Preservation Board, June 3rd, 2024. We did a virtual public participation meeting that we invited all of the neighborhood associations to within 300 feet, and we sent individual invitations to the various HOAs and civic associations. That was in June of 24, and then we made a big presentation as you get to the end of the project, and we've taken units out, we've reduced the number of hotel units, and we've made significant changes to the project. We presented that again in June of this year, and then of course we're here this evening.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Yes, thank you. So Chair, I wanted to address a couple of things that were said, and I am happy to go back to the deviations if you need me to. I think it's throughout the presentation. It's certainly addressed in your staff report. I want to thank the staff for working with us. We've worked very closely through this process with stakeholders, with the staff, with the elected officials, and through discussions with many of you. But I do want to. A couple of people had mentioned trees, so I think it's really important, and I do want to mention that Bob Dugan with EDSA is here. EDSA is the original entity that designed the Riverwalk, and we worked very closely with EDSA. There is only one specimen tree on this piece of property, only one. I was asking because I frankly was really shocked. I heard the number 130 a couple times. Several people got up and said that. And I'm very familiar, my office is right here, I'm very familiar with this piece of property. It's completely asphalt with the exception, and I know the trees on the west, they're beautiful, I see them too. They're right next to my office, so I see them. The majority of those trees are this junk that's here. it's brush and cabbage palms. There are one specimen tree of the entire piece of property, one specimen tree. I will tell you that that we've looked at the trees, and if you want Bob to speak, I don't know. Let me try this. If you would like to hear from Bob, if you have questions about the landscaping, I know he would be very happy to address that. I do want to say the trees we looked at, can they be relocated? I think that's a very difficult thing from what I'm being told. But if anybody would like the trees, we're happy to donate them. If there's somewhere else in the city that they would like the trees, we're happy to donate those trees. A couple of other quick things. Gina had mentioned two caveats about the Riverwalk. We completely agree with both of those. We are more than happy to donate the area around the rain tree to the city, so that is a true public space. That's something I knew that she and I had discussed that in the past, and we're happy to do that. I also want to talk about the crossing on the Riverwalk. We did approach FEC, so the property on the other side brought the Riverwalk right up to the railroad tracks, and we are bringing the Riverwalk right up to the railroad tracks as well. The caveat, it's not coming from us, and we're more than happy to continue to have a seat at the table. It's coming from the FEC. When we approached the FEC and said, we think this would be a better place to have a connection for the Riverwalk than where it is today, and where it is today is here on 5th. And obviously that's not a Riverwalk and it's not on the river. So we approached FEC and we said, we would really like to work with you to shift the connection over the railroad tracks all the way to the north so that it can hug the river. And I know that's something that's really important to the Riverwalk Committee. And the FEC said, go talk to the city of Fort Lauderdale. We're only going to work through them. We're happy to stay at the table. It's good for this project. It's good for the Riverwalk. It's good for the residents. We love the idea. Right now, the FEC has not been open to that discussion, which is why when we originally were talking about the various ways to get across the across the railroad tracks, we had designed multiple other options. In addition to the elevated Riverwalk, we do have the walkway that crosses in front of the marina at grade, and then we also have the Paseo, and then of course we also have beautiful sidewalks that are tree lined that come down 5th Street. So we're happy to agree to that. We also agree to all the conditions in the staff report, and as I said, if you'd like me to, I'm happy to go through the deviation request.
I think let's take some questions from the board first, and I think, did you have your light on? I thought you saw your light on and then light off, so go ahead.
Well, let me ask the staff, has anyone heard from FEC in regards to the conversation that was just started with the connection, that they passed it back to the city? Has anyone in the city been contacted?
We have not had direct communications with FEC, but we have, what Stephanie just stated, we've understood that FEC has stated that. And I will just mention, just to give Shari a chance, when we have that condition that was similar to what Ms. Ellis presented, and it's in the staff conditions, we would just like to add that it's subject to their approval, and obviously any other entity that might have jurisdiction over that railway. But no, we have not directly had communications with them.
Okay.
Yes, so I'll just emphasize in the conditions, it's condition 1D, where it talks about a crossing over the railway. So to just further explain, the city is subject to crossing agreements with FEC. So we have to coordinate with them and comply with the agreement. So anytime someone wants to, obstruct or build anything over it, et cetera, any sort of crossing to do with the railway, we have to go ahead and go through them. And they usually have to file an application with FEC, and it's subject to their approval. Sometimes there's other entities involved. So what we would add to condition 1D would be any connection over a railway will be subject to FEC, Florida East Coast Railway approval, and any other entity with jurisdiction over or regulating the crossing. So just for the record, that's what we would like to add to 1D.
Okay. So that means that we are then putting that as a condition that this group is going to continue to work toward that goal of having a connection closer to the waterway versus is it Southwest 5th? So that you're fine with putting that into part of this
We're
condition?
happy, it's subject to the FEC's approval, but we're happy to continue those discussions. It's to the benefit of everybody.
Okay. I also had written down from Gina's remarks in regards to the park area in front of the rain tree, so you just offered that up. Is that part of something that we can be putting into actual writing to part of this project, of that commitment, or is that because it's tied to the rain tree? You know, how do we get this onto record so it, on a different evening, we don't have a different answer?
I'm happy to just voluntarily, it's not connected to this site plan, but it is the same owner, and we're happy to offer that as a voluntary condition that we will dedicate that to the public, the area around the rain tree. I think that's appropriate for everybody.
Okay, so I understand that you're saying that, but I want to make sure that I have condition or confirmation from staff that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's so that Ms. Ellis is very satisfied after this vote tonight.
Yes, the only caveat I would say is that obviously it'll be up to the policy decision makers or parks director, et cetera, as far as the maintenance of that in the future, but I'm sure everybody would be happy to see a park there. Enrique is here in case you have any questions. Thank you.
Can I follow with that? I mean, it sounds a little vague to me. You know, it's a good idea, it's a lovely idea, but just putting it in as a condition without the Parks Department's accepting it, because when we accept something like that, then we become responsible for the tree, we become responsible for the maintenance and the liability, et cetera, et cetera. Not to say we shouldn't do it, but I'm concerned that, you know, we do it here and then we think we've done it, but in the end it doesn't happen.
I think the issue that I'm being told is that that area is a part of a different site plan. So I would not be able to, recommend that you include that. That would be subject to that other site plan, but not this one.
Well, that's another complication. So I don't think we should delude ourselves into thinking we've accomplished this. Even though you voluntarily, thank you, made that commitment, I don't think that within the purview of what we're doing tonight, we can feel comfortable that we've accomplished that.
Can I offer something? This project has to go to City Commission for the deviation requests. Gina and I are good friends. We are happy to sit down before we get to City Commission, work out the details, work with the Parks Department and the City Attorney's Office to make sure that we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And I mean, again, it wouldn't come back to this board, but I'm more than happy to commit that. I know that Ossie and Hector are happy to commit that as well.
Other questions? Patrick?
Yeah,
finish.
Do you want me to finish?
Yeah,
or, okay.
No, you're done. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. In regards to the marina, we were talking about that people are going to be able to continue to use it, but I know that there's going to be a downtime. So I needed to know how many months, years, etc., once it's closed before, and where are you suggesting these people go while these number of years that it's going to take?
That is a really good question that I don't have an answer for. Where are they going to go? It's a challenge in Fort Lauderdale. I heard one of the speakers say, I have nowhere to put my boat. I think a lot of people here struggle with that. And the way our ordinances are drafted here in Fort Lauderdale, it's illegal to rent your dock out. So even if you have a dock, if it's not your boat, you can't use it. And so it's a challenge. I will tell you that the plan is to stay open as long as possible until we're ready to receive a building permit. You know, it takes a long time to develop construction drawings. Once you hopefully get approval for a project, you go into construction drawings. That could take up to a year for construction drawings, and then you have to go through the building department. That can take up to a year for a full review of your construction drawings. And then a build for a project like this is a 3-year build. So you're looking at, you're on notice if you're in the marina. You hopefully that gives you enough time to be able to find a place to put your boat temporarily, and hopefully we can accommodate them back once it's open. Obviously, that's good for the project as well.
Patrick first.
Yes, a couple questions for Mr. Simbal, if I may.
Of course. Ossie?
Let me say my questions are not meant in a disparaging manner, but rather to address and hopefully dispel some concerns of fellow citizens. May I confirm that it is your intention to build this project with your current investment group, and/or is the door open to selling the project after the entitlements and permits are issued?
Well, we're here to build. That's the intent. That's
Okay.
what we've done with all of our projects.
Okay. Is there, there had been some concern that if the entitlements could be used to drive up the price if the county needs to use eminent domain for some of the land to build the bridge or tunnel next to your property. I understand that maybe you've been in recent talks with the county. Was the bridge, can you say if the bridge was part of those discussions or tunnel, and working with them in FEC if they need some eminent domain?
I think we saw an image of the bridge in about a 15-minute presentation that happened last week. That's the only thing. That's our only contact on that matter.
So there was no real discussion.
And as far as tunnel, I think maybe they asked for areas that they needed, and our engineers looked at it and said that it was fine, I believe.
So you are open to working with county, FEC, any government body to facilitate the putting in of the bridge or the tunnel?
Correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
I can actually address because I wasn't part of the meeting with the county on the bridge, but I was part of the meeting with the engineers for the tunnel, and they would need an easement. And our engineers worked with their engineers to determine that that's absolutely doable. That the easement, it's a small corner of the property that they would need. It doesn't harm the project. It can be done, and we gave them that information, and our engineers signed off on that.
Perfect. Due to the location of this and that
Correct.
potential project, people were
Correct.
concerned it could be used as leverage in there.
Correct.
So, just
I
wanted
think the
on the
bridge
record that
discussion is a little further behind, and I haven't seen engineering drawings, but I'm happy that it's an open discussion.
Correct.
And we're certainly
and you all
available.
will work with them in good
Of course,
faith too.
of course.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Both of you.
Thank you.
In the rendering you have in front of us, there's some language on the bottom that says voluntary condition of approval regarding treatment.
Yes.
What does that mean exactly?
So I'm gonna I had mentioned in my presentation that the Paseo is treated with an elevated design that is, I believe it's stamped concrete, and the idea was, because this is riverfront and we really want it to be beautiful, the idea, and I'm gonna go back to that slide in a minute, but the idea is that we would take that Paseo design and consider bring it all the way down. So instead of that being just asphalt, that will be a design that is similar to what's happening at the rest side. There it is right there. That's not the best rendering. It needs to be rendered, but you can see it's a colored concrete, stamped concrete. So that would, instead of right now, it's shown as ending right at the street level. That would continue instead of being asphalt. That design would continue down to the riverfront.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I go back to that drawing? Thank you very much. When I look at this drawing, I see the river walk coming out in a little orange thing that's going across. See that orange space?
Yes.
I would assume that that's where you're proposing to have the connection.
Yes. That's,
okay.
Yes, if possible. Yes.
Now I also see a solid fence there. Is that solid fence at the edge of your property?
There would not be a fence.
Oh, I'm not determining whether or not there will be fences. Is up to you. What I'm asking you is that the edge of your property?
Yes.
What is that forest of trees?
That's the FEC right of way.
You anticipate a forest of trees?
No, it's just a rendering.
Okay, I would like to point out to the staff that I have said this on several occasions. These drawings are deceptive, and they should not be accepted as part of the DRC application, in my opinion, okay? Because people look at it and say, oh, we got trees everywhere. There's no trees. That's a railroad right-of-way. Whether there's a tunnel there or a bridge there, there will never be trees there. So I'm pointing that out to make sure I understood it correctly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Oh, yeah. Are we going to go over the deviations?
We can.
Let's please.
Okay.
Would you like me to present them, or do you want to ask about them individually?
No, I'd like you to present them.
Okay. Can I go back? Okay. This is an overview of the deviations. The first deviation is the building height for the condo tower. So as I mentioned, this property is adjacent to the RAC CC, and the buildings all around it don't have the height limitation that we do because we're on this side, on the west side of the railroad tracks. So here the DMP has a 30-story maximum height, 30 stories. It's not defined by height, it's defined by stories, 30 stories. One of the towers is taller. That is the condo tower. And when I get to the condo image, I'll walk through that. So that's the first deviation. The second deviation is for the street wall length. That's the length of the podium. The podium is broken up in multiple places, and each section of the podium is less than the 300 feet. But because they're connected by a bridge, one of them's connected through a elevated pedestrian bridge, and some of them are connected over the Paseo and through architectural elements. The way the code is drafted, you have to ask for a waiver for the entire length of the podium. This is a very long site. It's a long, skinny site. As I said, it is 3.82 acres. So the street wall length is the length of the podium. The next deviation, and I do have images, I'm just going to go over them really quickly. The maximum podium height, as I said, is driven by the marina itself. Because the marina, in this section of the DMP, the maximum podium height is 7 stories. Next door to us, it's 9 stories. From the exterior, this podium looks like it's 7 stories, mostly because it's wrapped with residential units, and because to maintain the number of slips that we're trying to achieve by not losing, because there are more slips there today than we're able to accommodate. So to maintain the number of slips at 90, which was something that we worked closely with members of the marine industry, we have to leave that podium at 9 stories. So it doesn't appear to be 9 stories from the exterior, but on the inside it is. And then when you use a significant portion of your property for the marina, for the dry stack marina, you have to put all your parking on the remainder of that. And so to make the podiums consistent with each other, so you don't have a hodgepodge of different things, and I'll show you the amenity decks are shared and the pedestrian bridge are shared. So that's the podium height deviation request. The minimum tower step back, I touched on it a bit in my presentation. That's for the hotel, because the hotel is linear to the dry stack marina, and it goes straight up on the side. That requires a step back variation from that, and then for the condo tower, it's a deviation, but it's only one floor. It's an amenity deck that is actually a separate section of the building, separate than the tower, separate than the podium. And so it's a one floor deviation. And then the minimum tower separation is driven by our own building to our own building. It's a minor encroachment of 2 to 5 feet because the building undulates, and because we are including balconies, which I think is preferable. There are places on the building where we need a 5-foot variation, and there are places on the building where we need a 2-foot variation, but it only affects its interior to our own building. So I'm just going to take you through those really quickly. So as I said, the center tower, I think architecturally, it's important to have variations in height. And also from a design perspective, as you saw in one of the renderings, the lighting element that comes down the building and creates some drama for the building. The reason that works is because you have varying heights for the building. So that's the first, the first deviation request is for the center tower. The condo tower itself is set back from the river 260 feet. That's a very significant setback from the river to the waterway, and that was also to allow us to maintain those open view air corridors, air and light to the historic district across the river. This is a good image that you can see, because by keeping the hotel here, by using that space for the hotel, that we have to ask for a deviation for that because of the marina. It's the marina that creates the deviation request because of the location of the hotel, and also by moving the hotel out of the air and space and allowing that very large setback from the water so as to not have a canyon effect. So this is an image that explains how we've broken up the podium. As I said, we do need a building street wall. That's the length of the podium. When you look at it in your staff report, it looks like it's very large, but we're measuring it. It's including the entire, it includes the marina, it includes the paseo, it includes the different sections. So you have residential closest to us on the screen, and then you have a breakup of various elements of the podium with the retail, the restaurant, the condo, everything, the condo entrance, the lobby, everything that's going on. But the way the code is written, we have to ask for a deviation for the entire length, even though it's not technically connected everywhere. And you can see, here's another image that shows the articulated street wall and how those are very different elements that are happening. And each one of those, if they were taken individually, would be less than the 300 feet that the code permits. As I said, the podium height is driven by the marina. That's what really kind of drove the rest of the site. And because we want this to work as a unified site, and because we had to shift the parking to the remainder of the site, that's what caused the podium request. We did do we had some, Bernardo and his team, and I'm sure he's happy to talk about it, but did work on some of the breaks and the facade and whatnot that happened on the west side of the property. And here for the plaza. As I said, the tower step back. So there's really, it really is driven by the hotel being adjacent to the marina. So we're asking for a tower step back for the hotel. It's just not feasible to put it in a different location. And then, as I mentioned, there is an amenity floor that's on top of the condo podium that also requires a very small deviation request. It's not the whole thing. The tower itself is completely compliant with the master plan. It's just a small little amenity deck. It's kind of hard to see in this image, but if you look at the condo tower, which is the one that's adjacent to the hotel, there's like a round disc amenity space, and that's a very small portion of it needs a deviation from this step back.
Can I stop you here?
Sure.
Okay, because you're going to go into the small minor deviations with the balconies, which to me are not as significant. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the significant ones. The first one being the height. Okay? This zoning district is an Southwest Mixed Use District, SMU, which is a transitional district. It's supposed to be transitioning from the RAC, which has the larger buildings, the taller buildings, it's supposed to be transitioning down to the residential area. That, to me, project, although I will compliment the architects all the time, they have done a marvelous job. So please don't take this as negative on the architecture. Okay, but to me, this looks like a project that belongs in the RAC, and now you have to have deviations in order to put it in the transitional zone. When the height limit was set at 30 feet and you were encouraged to have more variations, that didn't mean higher than 30 feet. That meant lower than 30 feet, up to 30 feet, up and down like this. It didn't mean everything goes to 30 and then we'll throw another 7 stories of penthouses on top. So I object, or I feel we could not make the finding for the deviation in the height. Moving on to the deviation in the street wall. Okay, again, this project was designed to do what the program of the developer wanted to do. He wanted a certain number of units. He wanted a certain number of hotel units, which he has massaged. That's probably a good thing. And a certain number of boat slips, okay? So the program drove the design of this building, the bulk of this building. And the architect's done a credible job of trying to use architectural articulation of the facade to try and make it look like a smaller building, but it's a big building. And it shouldn't be this big a building that we now have to go and give you deviations in order to make it appear to be a smaller building. So I'm not comfortable with the deviation on the street wall, even though it's a very pretty looking street wall. And the one that really, really bothers me is the deviation requirement on the setback of the hotel. Now you say the hotel is there because that's the only place you could put it because the marina is there. No, that's not true. There were a number of other ways that you could have designed this project. The one tower in the middle could have been a hotel with branded condominium units. The program that the developer wanted for this site called for a hotel of a certain number of units, and you had to put it over on the side. And a consequence of doing that is you got a 30-story building going practically straight up from a 50-foot street. To me, that is not Fort Lauderdale, and that is certainly not transitional. To me, that is like, you don't do that in New York City. You don't go 30 feet straight up from the street. You have a setback. So I find that all of the deviations that you're requesting are driven by the program, which is trying to pack a certain amount of development onto the site. And to me, what I'm thinking is that if this is supposed to be a transitional zone, not supposed to be a transitional zone, this is too much development on this site, and it virtually is impossible for you to be able to build this program without deviations. And so the program is driving the request for the deviations, and we all have to make a decision of our own as to whether or not the program is worth the deviations. And with that, I have finished with my comments. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
Is this the part where the board is speaking to each other, or are we still, okay?
Unless you have questions for the applicant. Does anyone, let's do this first. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant at all? No. Thank you, Ms. Toothaker. Back to the board and for any discussion and or motions.
Well, actually, I have a question. Is there a reason why you can not keep the oak trees? Like, are they,
I'll let one of the architects, Bernardo,
other than like
or Bob.
staging the project?
Bob, you wanna?
Because they are almost like, it looks like on the right of way. I'm not sure why they have to be removed.
Bob Dugan, landscape architect with EDSA, designers for the project. When we came on board, the program was pretty well established. I've personally worked, I've personally worked on a number of tall buildings on tight sites. And the position of most of these trees would be in the building footprints. One of the other factors is we rely on the certified arborist to do the arborist report. And part of it is the species and the condition of the trees. Most of the trees on the site are in really poor condition. So whether there was room to save them, they're really not in that good a condition. And to think about relocating them, be even more difficult. They're probably not worth it. There is only one, by the city's codes, there's one specimen tree on the project that's a live oak. And that one, because it's a specimen, carries a heavy price tag on it. So, you know, we feel like we were given what we were given as far as the site plan. What we've done to the best of our ability is, if you really look deeply into the landscape plan, we've really pushed the number of trees, the caliper size, you know, the height and spread. So we feel like within what we can do on the project, that we've really maximized the putback landscape plan. That's on the riverfront, on the 3rd Avenue, on 2nd Avenue against the tracks, and on 5th Street. But to answer your question more directly, it's because of the health of the trees and the position of most of them, it's just not practical to save them in place. They might be there for a short period, but not for the long term.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Any other comments from the board? Or does anyone have a motion?
Brad?
Yep.
I do have comments. So I've just been listening to everybody, taking notes. A lot of the sentiments that I had about this project were reinforced with a lot of the things I've heard. And I just kind of latched on to some of the ideas that I had about it that I also heard here tonight. And, you know, somebody, I think it was Mr. Shearer, he described it as the jewel of Fort Lauderdale, the New River. And it couldn't be a truer statement. It is where the whole city of Fort Lauderdale began. It's where trade began. The New River has its name because it just showed up one day, and it was an underground river, and the top level of the land collapsed and exposed itself, and here we are, and life is still growing around this river, and I think it's super important, as we all know, to the city of Fort Lauderdale, to Miss Ellis, obviously, put a lot of work into it, and we have a master plan that was never adopted by the city. Everybody's always abided by it because it's obvious. It's such an asset to our city. We also have to balance that with the fact that we have a marine industry in Fort Lauderdale that we're very dependent on. It's a powerful lobby. It's also a powerful revenue maker for the city, and we can't ignore that. It's one of the biggest challenges I've ever seen for an architect. Bernardo has done a great job, addressing a lot of it. Where I think it fails, and where I stand on it right now, even after having, heard all the testimony today, is I think it fails from a neighborhood compatibility standpoint. And the reason I say that is when you look at this neighborhood particularly, it is connected to the river. This is the river neighborhood as far as I'm concerned. And every block that connects to the river along these edges has to do a phenomenal job of getting the people of Fort Lauderdale there. Not in a car necessarily. I think they've achieved that. But that pedestrian experience. And when we talk about street wall length and podium heights and building heights, it's not to control anything but the scale of the building from the perception of a pedestrian and the comfort of being in a downtown district or in a built district. Once you get into those bigger structures, it's just not a comfortable place to be, and it's been proven again and again. As a composition, it's beautiful. It's exactly what it needs to be from 1,500 feet in the air, flying by in a plane, seeing it from I-95. You need that. Fort Lauderdale, I think they've achieved that. It's iconic. But the main things that need to be achieved is pedestrian priority and bringing people to the river's edge. And once you're on the river's edge, you need to be able to use it. And they have a conundrum. You also have a marina that has boats up there. The bridge above the marina is a nice gesture, but it's just not going to be used. I hate for this developer to spend the money doing something like that when I know in my heart of hearts it's not going to be used. I don't even like to go up the pedestrian bridge on 3rd Ave or Andrews Ave to get across. So that's just a fact. Doesn't happen very often. So I think it needs a lot more work. I can't vote in favor of this project as it stands now. 3rd Avenue, as much as everybody has described what it is, if you get into the details, it's not grand enough. It just checks the box and barely checks the box for a regular development. When you're asking for additional podium height, additional building height, you're not stepping back the biggest tower from the river or from 3rd Avenue. You got to do more underneath to give people that sense of comfort when they approach the building and approach the river. So for those reasons, tonight, as it's presented, I would not be in favor of this project.
Any other comments from the board?
Yeah. I would like to just share everything that's on my mind as a Fort Lauderdale resident, but also a 7-year homeowner in the Tarpon River Civic Association, where this sits as a former president of the association, although I'm not representing them and haven't been active the last year. And as somebody who just every day, almost and during COVID every day, walked through these areas, walked by this site, longs to live in a neighborhood that is where I want it to be, and has historically had a lot of scrutiny over this project, particularly, and to share just some of my thoughts. In terms of like living in the neighborhood today, one of the concerns that I've always had is that there's been a lack of just amenitization. As president of the neighborhood, anytime that there was projects being proposed to us, there was zero effort whatsoever to include retail. One of the projects at Andrews and right in front of the Publix was a 60-story proposal. I think it was approved through DRC. They put 900 square feet of retail without even enough for like a Starbucks, not even. There's going to be 600 units. So I think there's like 12 or 14,000 feet here. If there's one place that I would want the retail to be as a resident that walks through this area, goes down the street, it would be along 3rd Avenue. Exactly how the developer put it, frankly. As crossing over 5th Street, all these years, I've longed for that to not look so blighted as it has. The south end of the site has an industrial building, warehouse that just wasn't part of the site plan. I think they recently bought it. I had really hoped that they would, and because if not, you wouldn't have units. The fact that they've actually put units around the base of the structure facing south on 5th Street, I really appreciate. I think it's going to help activate that area and create less of a blight. We, on a monthly basis, had to work with the city and like send notices constantly to try to please remove like abandoned cars right in front of that space. And there's been no eyes on it. It's not exactly safe in that area at night. I think having units lining there is exactly the right thing to do. I think another issue that I recently realized now that 3 new towers have been completed or are topping out in the area, they're all exactly the same. There's 3, and when you look at it, especially along with the Society building, which is wide, and also the same, they're all, not only are they the same, they're the same color. So there's 3 gray buildings, so when you're driving up 4th Avenue and you're going over the bridge, all you see is just a gray wall. There's nothing different. It's all concrete block, and there's no glass. There's no design. There's no articulation. I do Arquitectonica, for what it's worth. I lived in a building in Miami that they designed Axis, which was really like a Class A building. I loved it. I think it was like a great addition. I think that they were thoughtful, and at least that building, it looks like there's been a lot of thought put in here. I think that for the Riverwalk, the stamping the concrete all the way to the river would be paramount, because we definitely wouldn't want asphalt just with all the amount of design orientation that has been done. And in terms of parking, somebody had mentioned that they didn't feel there was enough parking, but I really thought through the parking, because one of our concerns has always been that there would be cars like piled all around the area, but there is more than enough parking in this building. There's no question about that. I've actually thought through it in terms of number of bedrooms, number of people, how many people would come there for the retail. And as compared to other projects, there's like substantially more parking, even with the reduction. And then I agree with Marilyn and with John that we're granting variances that are allowing them to go as high, like going higher, and this setback and that setback. But I do think what we're getting for that is that we're not, without granting those variances, if they tried to propose something within the box that, would we be happy with another like view New River, which I also, when walking down the Riverwalk, like view as just a giant wall. I think that when people are going down the river here, they're going to see like thinner buildings that's exponentially more expensive to construct, with glass and articulation of design instead of a big box. And they've requested variances, which, if not for those variances, maybe there'd be a different design that's boxier and less attractive. So my biggest lamentation, if that's a word, on this is really the removal of the oak trees along 3rd, which I think, which are special trees. And I would ask that the developer acknowledge on the record that to the extent that the city or other parties are express willingness to take and home those trees, that they would work with those potential receiving parties to have them relocated. Otherwise, those are just my thoughts, and that's it.
Any other comments from the board? Any motions to be made?
Yes, Chair, I had a couple of comments. Jay, I really appreciate your perspective as having lived in Tarpon River. So I think that has helped me with a couple of the items that I had in question. To follow up on some Marilyn's points, I really looked at, and they're deviations, not variances, but the deviations that were requested tonight. And, you know, I realize that this isn't a step-down area, but it's just by the luck of the draw that they're on the other side of the track. And so when you look at one side of the track and they have 37, but then just a few feet later, and when the deviation for the setback of the hotel, which I was very pleased to see that it was not a canyon on the river, that the frontage of the hotel to the river is only about 30 feet, from 35 feet, and that is on closer to the Rain Tree development. So if the developer was willing to put this hotel closer to his other development, and he doesn't feel as if that's going to impact the value of that development, and it opened up the river for 280 feet so that the south of the historic neighborhood was not being impeded by as much of a shadow. That was a very positive for me. I did go through some very detailed analysis on the parking, because I am always going to be, as sitting here in the future years, going to be questioning parking, because I really feel as if there has been a lot of development that has underparked. And to follow up with Jay's comment, I also feel that there is adequate parking in this project. So the tower height setback along the river and along the deviation for the street, I have no issue with. And the height, it's not all three buildings at 37, and you have to look not at just that particular, but who are their neighbors. And with all the other projects, it's not out of, it's still stair-stepping, in my opinion. So with that, if there aren't any other comments, then I would like to make a motion to approve with the chairs.
I have a comment.
You have a comment?
Yeah, short one. It's brief. Both Jay and Brian have expressed my feelings, the same feelings there. And again, I think the deviations are warranted. They're well warranted because of what we're getting in the way of an iconic project, and the fact that a lot of these deviations were prompted by the saving of the marina, which is business, and the river is the heart of the city. So we need to keep that in mind. I think they've done a good job, and everything's warranted. As you can tell, I'm always unhappy to see old growth trees lost, but hopefully they can do what they can, and everything is warranted.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve. I move to adopt the resolution approving a site plan level 3, case number UDP.
Could I jump in? Sorry.
Oh, sure.
So because
Sorry.
this is going to the city commission, it's a little weird and it's not in your, so.
It's not on my cheat sheet.
Yes. So you would recommend approval to the city commission, and then you can decide whether or not you want to adopt any of the conditions that, the one, especially the one I stated, that was very nice. Yeah, anyway, go ahead. But
Okay.
you could just state your recommendation and why.
So it's a motion to approve recommendation to the city commission.
Motion to
2?
recommend approval of the site plan to the city commission, and you can state the case number, and then you just state if it complies with the criteria in the ULDR and et cetera, and the conditions as well.
I'll try that again. Motion to approve moving this to, recommending
recommend
recommending this site plan level 3 application to City Commission for their approval with the stipulations that were given by the city attorney representative and any other staff reports, as the case number UDP S22055, based upon the findings and the facts from this board, and the board hereby finds that the application meets standards and requirements of the ULDR and criteria for the proposed use as cited in the resolution. Is that adequate?
Yes, but there were some other conditions other than me that I think the applicant may have voluntarily agreed to. So I just want to make sure whether it's up to you whether the board up to, I didn't want to.
From my recollection, there was a...
Ms. Toothaker, you want to tell us what the builder voluntarily...
And just to clarify, it's all the staff conditions in the staff report, correct?
We agree to all the conditions on the staff report. We also agree to work with Gina Ellis and the Riverwalk between now and City Commission on the two caveats that she offered, and we also will look at the trees on the west side to see if they can be moved and perhaps there's somewhere else that they can go. We'll take a hard look at those. We'll work with EDSA on that.
Okay, so just to clarify, because we have to be very careful, we're not requiring them to remove the trees. They're voluntarily, relocate the trees. They're voluntarily agreeing to relocate.
No.
Is that correct?
No. We will work with the EDSA to look at the trees to see if there is anything that can be done with the trees, but we're not volunteering to relocate them.
Okay,
we will
great.
offer them to anybody that would like to have them.
And Jay, just to, explain why under the statute, so it's very tricky with the trees, so.
Yeah, they can't, I understand, but if the city particularly agrees that they would like to receive them, then you will work
Donate
with
them.
the city to help relocate them.
The city would pay to relocate them, but we would donate the trees.
Because, the statute,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not agreeing that the city will pay for anything. It's just they will work together, but we can't require them to relocate the trees.
Understood.
So I don't have authority to, give money to this. So yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So do I need to change my motion?
No.
No? We're good?
There were a couple other things, right, Stephanie?
It was the dedication, if the city would like to receive the dedication of the area around the rain tree, that we would dedicate that to the city. Again, the caveat being if the city wants it.
So I just don't recommend that one because that's attached to another site plan, and then we have to deal with the exaction. And exaction, they can't waive that, the applicant. So I just don't recommend that because it's a part of another site plan.
We'll do it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just legally they just can't waive it. So while I could say, hey, voluntarily move the trees, I can't say that about that. So yeah.
There was a railway crossing I noted down.
That was one of the things that the Riverwalk Trust asked us for, and we said we would stay at the table to try to accommodate the crossing of moving the crossing of the Riverwalk from 5th to the location where the Riverwalk meanders along the river to the property that's on the other side of the railroad tracks. Yes, we agree to that as well.
There was also something about the design around the building.
And the design of the stamped concrete that would continue through the Paseo all the way down to the riverfront. Yes, we agree to that condition as well.
Along the east side of the building.
Along the east side, that's correct. Yes, along the east side of the project.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll.
Yes.
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 No.
No.
Don't forget me. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. All right, let's move on to number 4, UDP T24007. This is the amend the City of Fort Lauderdale Unified Land Development Regulations for landscape and tree preservation requirement. Anybody gonna get up there? No. Someone's gonna speak on it. Here we go. There they are. Take your time. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, 2005. This guy's got a good memory. He's got a good memory. Yes. 20 years ago and probably 30 pounds. No, no. Oh, yeah, I know Mike. He's great. The worst. That office is the worst. Never call again. Thank you so much. All right, let's go. Yeah,
Hello.
Mike, it's okay.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, board wants a 5-minute break, just to stretch. Go ahead. Stretch, break, Beth. Me. Is that on the record? All right. You ready? Let's talk about some trees. All right, we're going to start back up. Everybody, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Vice Chair and members of the board. Carla-Ann Devenish.
Ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Vice Chair and members of the board. Carla-Ann Devenish with Development Services Department. This is an amendment to the Unified Land Development Regulations, Section 4721. This is the tree ordinance that came to you all in June, and of course the item was deferred to this month. I did put it together the same presentation because I didn't want to change the narrative very much, but I did provide a few slides that had more description of the subsections that are actually being changed. So this is not going to be a long presentation. So we went over this last time. The presentation will quickly go over past efforts, what the proposed changes are. We touch on more details about the Tree Canopy Trust Fund, as well as the Urban Forestry Master Plan and what our next steps are. So you all know that we've been at this for quite some time now. We've had several public meetings as well as a slew of public engagement with the public. The ordinance was originally the whole section of 4721 of the ULDR. This iteration is bifurcating that original ordinance to just focus on the tree preservation regulations. And so the subsections that are being revised will primarily focus on the tree preservation code to provide a more prescriptive and robust regulations for site development. And so this is a new slide. This is just providing more of a general idea of what is being proposed within that section. This is section 4721.1. This is the intent and purpose section. And some of the language that is being added is to make sure that we add some language that says we are proposing to minimize and remove the removal or loss of trees and palms, and to ensure that trees and palms within the city are maintained in healthy and non-hazardous conditions, encouraging the planting of landscape species that are sustainable and appropriate for site conditions. The next subsection that we are touching is the definition section. We are adding about 26 new terms, and then there are some terms that we are updating and strengthening or expanding on that term in order to provide additional clarity and also to provide a better understanding when we're relating the new terms and the existing terms. So some of those terms that are new, as you can see, is critical root zone, desirable tree or desirable palm. And one of those terms that we did update, and when I say update, just expanded, that would be a protection barricade, for an example. The next subsection that we are amending is section 4721.3. This is the general provisions and design standards. Some of the, again, this is just a summary of what we did, but some of the revisions for that section was adding language regarding making it unlawful to abuse trees or to allow removal of city commission protected tree or palms. We also added how critical root zone is calculated and tree removal requirements after a state of emergency due to natural disaster. The next subsection that we touched was 4721.6, which is landscape plan required. That is the existing title of that subsection. We are changing that subsection to now be called landscape and tree document packet required, and we added language to require a landscape and tree document packet to be submitted with most landscape permit and tree permit applications applicable to tree preservations. So some of those documents that will need to be included in that tree document packet would be a tree and palm survey, a tree and palm inventory, a corresponding list of existing trees and palms numbered to match the tree and palm survey, the common and botanical name of each existing tree, and an arborist report, just to name a few of those documents. And again, as applicable based on the type of permit that's being submitted, but this section was revised based on tree preservation regulations. And then the last subsection that we are revising is the tree preservation section itself. That is section 472115. We are changing that subsection title to regulations for the preservation of tree and palms. And we reordered some of those sections based on priority, with the tree protection being first. And then the following subsections have been included or revised. And as you can see, I'll quickly go through it. Tree and palm protection requirements, root cutting requirements, tree and palm relocation requirements, tree and palm pruning requirements, tree removal permitting, licensing, preservation, and mitigation requirements for a natural forest community, tree permit requirements, tree and palm mitigation calculation requirements, tree services and arborist requirements, tree abuse, enforcement and civil remedies, and tree preservation credits. This is one of those old slides. Again, I didn't want to change it too much, but I did quickly go over this already, that we've added some new terms to the definition section. Another old slide, but this does speak to some of the tree and palm protection regulations that we are putting in place. So I'll quickly go over it. So that is just making sure that the critical root zones of existing trees will be required to be graphically provided on plans submitted for permitting. The construction work will be limited within the tree and palm protection zone to minimize impacts. There are activities that are going to be restricted within the protection zone. And then, of course, there will be signage that will be required to be placed around the protection barricades. And I went over this the last time, but some of those activities that are prohibited within the tree protection zones are things like making sure that there's no equipment or building materials that is surrounded by the protective barriers. Also making sure that there's no waste materials such as paint, oil, or solvents, or any type of concrete, mortar, and any other materials allowed within the area surrounded by protective barriers. And then for sure having no vehicles or equipment within that area. And what is limited or to be done within the tree protection zone would be hand digging and grading, and things like making sure that there's infrastructure such as underlying lines, plumbing, electrical lines, things like that. Those are allowed but limited, and definitely looked at when it's being done. So this was one slide that is also old, but we touched on this the last time. We are lowering the condition rating from 70% to 60%. This would allow for us to be able to include more trees to be considered as a specimen tree, so that will increase that specimen tree requirement and definitely help to save more of those old growth trees. We are also making sure to categorize the trees by large, medium, or small, and then palms would also be categorized as large or small and be considered desirable under the desirable tree requirements. And then we are still keeping the tree credits that we originally proposed within this ordinance. So for one preserved existing tree between 12 and 24 inches ZBH, it will be counted towards 2 on-site required trees. And then for one preserved tree that is 24 inches or more, would be counted as 3 on-site required trees. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think your mic is on. Your mic.
Sorry. Tree preservation credits. Did you say you are proposing to change them, increase them, improve them? What was the deal with the tree preservation credits?
This was what was originally proposed in the June, and that's what we're still keeping.
Okay, and then that's an improvement over the current situation.
Yes, we have no tree credits right now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. For the Tree Canopy Trust Fund, the funds from the Tree Canopy Trust funds will be used to provide planting of trees on public land and rights-of-way, distributing trees to the public, replacing hazardous trees on city projects or from city property right-of-way, and implementing the urban forestry master plan.
Just another question, implementing the urban master plan, tree master plan, there were some limitations on the amount of money from the trust fund that you could use for planning as opposed to actual planting. Is that still in it?
Yes, it is.
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, we didn't change that. So thank you for clarifying. The next is equivalent value. So we did change this as well. This was that rate that hasn't been updated in over 20 years, and so we're making it a market-based for today's market rate. And then the funding received will be, of course, placed into the Tree Canopy Trust Fund. The remedies and the civil remedies are still the same from what I presented at the June meeting. So if there is an offense within a 12-month period, there is a $1,000 fine per tree plus a monetary payment that will be made to the Tree Canopy Trust Fund for the equivalent value of that tree or palm. And then there's a repeat offense within that 12-month period, then it goes from $1,000 to $2,000 per tree plus a monetary payment, again, also within the Tree Canopy Trust Fund. And then we all know that the Urban Forestry Master Plan is underway, so I don't have to get into that too much. And then our next steps. So our next steps would be focusing on the installation phase. So all the other subsections that weren't touched, but does deal with the installation of trees. So we are hoping to get that going once this is approved, or at least moved to City Commission. And then we, as part of that phase, we will be looking at additional tree credits. We'll make sure that we have regulations for synthetic and artificial turf, modular suspended pavement system, landscaping above grade, so things like rooftops, installation, updating the tree classification list, and then making sure that we have continuous stakeholder engagement as part of this process.
One additional question on this one. Next steps, additional tree credits. Is that what you're calling incentives, or is that just changing the formulas?
No, that would be what some would call incentives, but we don't want to coin it that way, but would be considered incentives. But yeah.
Okay. Why don't you want to call it incentives? Sounds great to me. Dirty or not.
But that's it.
Okay,
yeah,
so we understand that that's
the same thing.
Incentives.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's it for me. And I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Perfect timing.
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
So I, had the opportunity to receive some phone calls from Doug and some others, and read a lot of these emails, etc. So, my position was that we need to get this in front of City Commission as quickly as we can. So, from a city point of view, some of the concerns that they have about postponing that, the incentivizing or whatever, credits, whatever we want to do, how could that, if you go back your screen, that second line, how do we get that to part of what we're going to the commission and quickly? Because I would really like this in front of the commission and get on record everyone before the election. I think we would all benefit as taxpayers of knowing everyone's position on that. So how can we get some credits, or if we can't because of the legal review, et cetera, but they provided us a lot of green line things, so I don't know if that's easy to quickly adopt and make sure that we've done what we need to do with the city. But my challenge is I don't want to not put something in front of the commission, but I would like to include what the advisory group had put forward. So my question is to staff, can we take what this is, and this is great, and can we modify that and get something in front of the commission ASAP, because there's an election coming and I want to know where everybody stands on this, because in 2019 they kicked it back.
before you build on it, let's get an answer from the city first, before you build.
Is your current draft with what the group wanted, or no?
Not with what the group wanted, no.
Because the issue is you can do a recommendation to add certain things or
Right.
whatever it may be. The only thing is we want to make sure that we don't make any significant changes between now and then, because then it has to come back to you because we have to get your recommendation. So it's just to be clear on what you want to be added. That's all.
What would you like to be added?
The green line items of adding additional incentives or tree credits, whatever terminology we feel as a city makes sense.
Would the applicant be okay with adding that as further recommendations to their proposal? So it's here's your proposal, but
Right.
adding a section where these are the recommendations from this group.
Because it's not lying with us. We're making recommendation, take it to city
Right.
commission.
We got
and
it.
then city commission is going
Yes.
to do it. So
Would that be okay with the applicant is the question, to add that, to say, hey, we want you to take a look at this, and for the good of the city, we can also recommend it, but to add it to the report to say, this is the group's recommendations. Besides our recommendations, here's something else from that you guys can consider.
So at this time, no. We haven't had a chance to really flesh out what was recommended by the AG group that was sent to you all.
Right.
We did try to figure it out, but whenever we sat down to try to figure it out, what we seem to come across is that those recommendations will be best line up with the installation requirements. So when you're looking at a plan, for instance, and if you want to throw out your idea, but if we're looking at site development and we're providing tree credits, we don't know what the regulations or the requirements for the installation is to begin with. So we want to make sure that what we're proposing in terms of how much tree credits are going to be provided lines up with what the requirements will be in terms of installation, and we're not there yet because we're not looking at that phase yet.
Can I ask a question to city staff? What I want to know is, can we as a board say, as part of our recommendation, we want this report to be considered by the commission? For feedback. For their feedback. For their feedback. Yeah, for their feedback. Do you understand? We would be essentially saying, yes, let's move this on to the city, but as part of your consideration, we want this report as with the city's report. We want the report and recommendations of this group to be considered by the commission. Can we do that?
I think I want to just clarify too that
Sure.
we're also looking to consider those very same
Right,
things. We
right.
just want to make that part of the next phase.
Yeah, we
So
want to
you know
make
what I mean?
sure
Just
that
to
this,
make sure the record is clear. We want to move forward at this point
Right.
and move it in front of the commission.
Right.
And then at a second phase, include all these things that have been talked about. So we're also not ignoring them. We're just saying it's not part of this.
and I know that. I just want the city to understand that there's these recommendations from this group, that we're not just saying, yes, let's move this on, we're recommending approval of this. We're saying, we want to move this on, we're recommending that the city take a look at it with these groups' recommendations.
Do you want to state that it could be part of the next phase as well, or are you saying that they should be looking at it as part of their approval of what we have in front of them today?
I think that, me personally, I would want them looking at it as part of the approval of what we have today. I want them to look at this.
Yeah. And maybe with a caveat of that it's going to be in the next official phase.
Right.
But we want their feedback on this attachment, right?
They could decide whether.
Can I say something?
Sure.
This is going to the city commission for a vote. They're not going to be sitting around discussing.
Yeah, they will.
No, they're not. They're going to vote on what's in front of them. They should not be discussing other things. They should be voting on what's in front of them. And while I'm very pro incentives, okay, I am not comfortable with the green line, okay. You guys are experts. These guys are experts. You come together on the stuff that we've agreed on. So we're very comfortable sending the stuff that we've already agreed on straight over. But you guys have not come to an agreement on the substance of the incentives, because I'm going to call them incentives and not credits.
Well, let me clarify more than Marilyn. What I meant was take the current, let's recommend that for vote.
Yes.
And then bring the other as a conference meeting presentation from the city once the city has done it to give feedback from the commission. So I wasn't lumping them together. I didn't communicate that effectively.
I appreciate that, and we're getting closer. And I think it might be appropriate to put it in as a communication to the commission. In other words, send this over for a vote and send a communication to the commission and say, we believe that you should look at this, conference it, and get this together and get the staff and the people together because this is important. Incentives are important.
Okay, so we're getting off track with discussion. So first, you're done with your presentation, correct?
Correct.
Let's open it up to the people. Let's have their feedback, and then we'll discuss again, and we'll take a vote. So anyone that wants to speak on this subject, I think I only have 3 people that signed up. I don't know if that's, I have Fred, not Nassau, Stressaw. You want to speak on this? You want to speak on this, Mr. Stressaw? Or, okay, if you want to, you
Please,
can get
if
up there.
folks could state their name for the record so I don't have to keep singing.
So the 3 that I have are Fred, Vanessa Apotheker, Ryan Emmert. Boy, that is a horrible T. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. Emmert. Okay, so. Okay, so let's take Ryan first. Ryan, would you like to speak on it? Okay. Doug first. Sure. State your name and your address, and let's get it all right, and let's move on. Right. Hopefully.
Doug Coleman, 1911 Bayview Drive, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, since 1968.
Okay.
Good evening again, planning and zoning members.
Yeah, is your mic on, Doug?
I think it's on.
Okay. Is the red line? Yeah, it's on. Yeah,
It's a little louder, Doug.
As you know, we've been working with the city on this issue for years, and hopefully tonight we can keep moving forward. It appears you have 2 options tonight to move forward. One is to approve the item before you tonight as is, without what I consider any regards for incentives or tree credits, which is 1, completely contradictory to what the previous P&Z board asked to be accomplished, and 2, what a majority of the stakeholders asked for, plus why the city bifurcated the ordinance in the first place to address tree preservation only, which I do have a question of Kara Carlan. I assume that this presentation is based on the document that you gave us on July 30th, correct? You haven't made changes to that document? No. Okay, thank you. 2, pass the draft ordinance onto the city with what the AG has recommended to address incentives and or tree credits, in other words, be put in there. As you know, we've already provided our green text. When we were here in July, we only had one issue that was to resolve, this one. About a week later, we asked the city when could we meet to discuss it, and basically we were told they don't want to discuss it, they want to put it off. And we said, well, if we're going to have tree protection, we need to do it early in the design process. It can't go later on in the process. The owner of the property needs to know what the criteria are. I think we experienced that here tonight earlier, too late in the game. So I was under the impression, and this is maybe a legal question, that if you send what's been adopted with a recommendation that you add this in, I guess, I don't know if that's possible. I understand tonight the staff, because ever since they told us they didn't want to talk to us, they haven't. So I don't know what they think about what we wrote. We decided, because they said it was either too complicated, we totally disagreed that it should be put off later. It needs to go into what is going to be called the tree preservation portion. Whether it's what we write or they write, we said we have to write something because what's in there isn't enough. So I think I've had my 3 minutes.
You did. You have 25 seconds left.
Well, I'll devote that to Fred. He talks slow and long.
Thank
you very much.
Fred, are you going to be speaking on this? Okay.
You didn't think I sat here for 5 hours?
Nope. Go ahead. Take the podium. Does that look like Ryan Emmett?
You got to give one of the secretaries.
It doesn't look like an R either. Right. That's what I thought. Hold on, Ryan's got something. That was just for Fred. Go ahead, Fred.
I'm not going to try to explain that because I haven't looked at it, but Natalia worked hard on that this afternoon. Let me start out by saying that I think that the ordinance that is in front of you is probably the best ordinance in the state of Florida. We have argued, we have scratched each other's eyes out, and what is before you is a compromise that I think is as realistic as you could possibly want. The only thing that we've not been able to decide on is what everybody calls incentives. And the problem is not going to get solved tonight. I don't know how you're going to forward. I think it's important to get the ordinance in front of the commission what you got. Okay? And Al Battle has said we'll deal with it in the next section, which is the installation section. We disagree that the incentive should be in the installation section, but if that's what it takes to get the ordinances that's put together in front of the commission, I think you should do it tonight. What you're looking at, the graphics that you're looking at, is contrary to what the staff has proposed. And the only incentive that the staff has proposed is that for a tree of a certain size, you get credit for 2 trees. If the size increases over a certain limit, you get credit for 3 trees. And the total giveaway on that is less than a couple of $1,000s. So I don't know that it's worthwhile even talking about it tonight. I had come along and decided that and the staff doesn't have any incentives. They were not able to come up with any other than what I just described. What you're looking at is a proposal by the advisory group that raises the credits for an existing tree so that you get credit for what the value of the tree is today against what you would owe in what we call the net lot area, which is all the trees on the site except for those trees in the vehicular use area and the street trees, that trying to keep it as simple as possible. So there are requirements for all the trees on the site. It's 1 tree for every 1,000 square feet of green area. And if you had a 10-inch existing tree, what is proposed is that you get credit for 10 caliper inches, which would equate to about 3 trees. So you could leave the existing tree and get credit for 3 trees that were in the 3-inch caliper. That's 9, so it's 10, it's a wash. Okay. Somewhere along the way in the middle of the night, I suggested that maybe what we do for certain size trees as they become desirable trees or specimen trees, that you add 150% to the value of the tree so that it increases the cost of cutting the tree down, and that eventually ends up being less than trying to transplant the tree. And I have a whole fistful of handouts that I don't want to give you tonight to support all these numbers. But the bottom line is the percentages might work if we have an opportunity to sit down and talk about it with the staff, but they don't want to talk about it, and so tonight you're on a camel.
But you're saying, if I can just ask a question, you're saying that you think we should move this on to the city commission as is and address it? What are you saying?
Well, you're going to have to do it in knowing that the incentive clause is not in there.
Gotcha.
And we've spent a year and a half trying to come up with incentives.
Okay.
So you're going to pass it on and say, yeah, we're going to do the incentives, and down the road, when you get to the second section of this, we're going to have the same argument. So I don't know how it's going to get solved, because the staff hasn't got any incentives, and we have some that they haven't talked about.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Fred, before you leave?
Yeah, you want my name, right?
Yeah, please say your name, right.
Fred Stressaw.
So listen, Fred, we go back a long way on this, and I appreciate your telling us and your support for getting something done. But I like the incentive idea, because I think you're correct in that if it's just a question of planting trees and the formula of the saving the trees, and they're not going to, it's not enough. It's not enough. And there are specific trees that are worth saving.
You have a question for him?
Yes, my question is, because I know we're all tired.
I just want a question if you have a question.
My question is, are you comfortable with what you guys have proposed for the incentives proposal? We got green stuff.
No, I want to be fair. I want to be fair to the staff and say yes. I think we are, but I think that the staff needs to look at that and agree to it, and certainly the city attorney needs to look.
Okay, so what you're really saying to us is there some way? I'm asking you if what you're telling us is there some way we can nudge the commission, nudge the staff in the direction of hurrying up with the incentives? Because I'm concerned that, we've made the strategic decision to put it off until the urban
master plan,
until the master plan is done, and then it'll get put off again, and it'll put off again. So if we can find a way to not put it in this proposal, because I don't think we can put it in this proposal. We can't.
You can't even condition your approval with something.
We've advertised what we've advertised, and then we can't send over to the commission something different from what we've advertised. We just can't do it. So we got to find another way to put the pressure on the commission.
Okay.
Let me add one thing.
Fred, your time's up. Let's go.
Oh.
I think you're great, but we got to move on. Yes. Okay. All right. State your name and your address.
I am still Natalia Barranco, and I live in Crescent Park.
She's advertising.
For the record, that's my sister.
Yeah, lucky me. So we've come a long way, city staff. My issue with the tree, we have a new tree what are we calling it? Landscape packet, And in that, anytime, and we just saw it on the wiping out of the 31 trees, you're supposed to do an inventory of a site, right? And now we're going to have the condition of every tree, we're going to have the dollar value of every tree, and we're going to have the caliper inch based on its health, what that is valued at. Based on that, I already know what the equivalent value of every tree is. I have no problem. I want it defined in this part of the ordinance what the equivalent value is. We can duke it out on how those credits are used, but for instance, what you have in front of you, if something is a 24-inch tree, 60% rating, and this is the addition of the 150%, because Doug and Fred did bring up the point, compared to where we are now, to increase the value for these specimen trees, it should be more expensive to remove the tree instead of transplanting the tree, right? So I do agree with that. I think it's going to hurt the small developer, the small, you know what I mean? And I don't want to become Miami. I like our different scales. I don't think everything should be like this last project we saw with Little Green. Like I said before, we have a zoning issue, not an ordinance issue. But we have to define a developer needs to know, looking at the tree preservation, I have three choices. I can keep the tree, and this is what it's gonna cost to keep it. This is my credits that I know I'm gonna be able to use in the next portion of the ordinance. And those credits, we can define them, how they're used in the next. But it needs to be defined now, not next 3 years. I also remind everyone, I'm doing this for 3 years. Unlike staff, I'm not getting paid.
Okay.
All right. Ryan? And just state your name and your address when you take the podium. And is there anybody after Ryan that wants to speak, or is that it? You've already done.
My name is Ryan Emmer, and I live at 635 Northeast 11th Avenue in Victoria Park. I joined the advisory group in 2022, and I've gone to all the meetings except the last couple. I'm going to give a couple dissenting opinions on some of these things. I'm the only person in the group that actually builds homes. Everybody else is a landscape architect. And then I actually have two very concrete proposals that nobody's brought up for incentives that will make it, in my opinion, a big difference and will actually incentivize and give people equivalent value to protect trees. So the first two issues that I think you're going to face with this is in the critical root zones, and this is just from a building perspective. They have a clause in there that says for every 1 inch of DBH, which is diameter breast height, that you have to have 1 feet of radius, around the trees. I think you're going to face an issue, and to staff's credit, they said there is some leeway in terms of how they could modify that on a building site, but I'm just going to tell you, I build on a lot of 50 by 100 lots, and if you've got a 20-inch DBH tree, and you have to put a radius of 20 feet on each side around there, that's going to cause huge problems and conflicts in terms of grading, irrigation, engineering. So I don't know what you're going to do about that, but these critical root zones are very large in comparison to some of these small sites that builders build on. The other issue is in their designation of specimen trees, they designated small trees up to 8 inches of DBH and medium trees up to 13 inches of DBH as specimen trees. Nobody does that in the entire state. I checked every single other county. The only county that even comes close is Miami Beach, which has 13-inch across-the-board DBH as specimen trees. I think you're going to face an issue with that, especially if you enact some ordinance. I think they were talking about that before for accessory dwelling units in the back of people's homes. I think the thing that people care most about is protecting large old-growth trees, these huge massive oaks, maybe the huge gumbo limbos. I think it's a mistake to make small and medium trees as specimen trees, except for what I proposed as a compromise. I proposed making the slow growth trees in South Florida Water Management District has a chart where it actually lists the growth rate of trees. And I said, look, as a compromise, make the slow growing trees like a lignum vitae. You can make those specimen trees, but any old little small or medium tree should not be made a specimen tree. I think it's counter to what the public wants. They don't care. They just want to protect the large old growth trees. And I think that's going to cause problems, especially if you enact an AD accessory dwelling unit ordinance, or if people want to build on their lots in general. I think it's going a little too far. I know most of the staff and landscape advisory group doesn't agree with me, but I thought I'd put these points out there. Okay, incentives. If you look at your sheet, I propose this. Nobody wants to listen to me, but this is done before. What I'm proposing to give equivalent one-to-one value is that you should create a tree credit bank. So let's say you have a large oak tree, and let's say that oak tree is worth, you calculate some value of $30,000. Let's say I'm a builder on that site, okay? There is no way that whatever they're proposing right now, staff or even the landscape advisory group, that you can get the equivalent number of trees that are not required to plant on your site. Like if you look at this sheet, you'll see 15 tree credits for a 36-inch oak tree. The requirement for a 50 by 100 or 75 by 100 lot is 4 or 5 trees. So you're not going to get that credit back on your site. It's just not going to happen. But if you create a tradable tree credit bank, where let's say a developer gets credits for 15 trees, and then he can use 3 or 4 of those credits on his own site or his or her site, and then you can sell those other credits to other developers for their sites, then that would give the developer the proper incentive to keep a tree on his site, because then he's actually getting equivalent value. What they're proposing now, what this ordinance is doing, it is doing zero to protect old growth trees. Because if you've got a $36-inch, $30,000 oak, and your only incentive to not remove it is so you don't have to plant two little small 2-inch DBH trees, you're just going to knock it down. So if you create a tradable tree credit bank where you're actually being given the value and you can sell that value to other people and realize it for yourself, that might incentivize people to keep trees. The second proposal is, and Mr. Gannon, you said this earlier in one of the other, I think one of the parks or the development, not all trees are the same. So a tree that is smack in the middle of a buildable lot, nobody is going to protect that because it destroys the developer's ability to build anything. But a tree that's on the corner or on the borders of a lot, at that point, it starts becoming a conflict or worth it to develop it. Whereas, let's say, maybe I can save that tree, and instead of it ruining my entire development, it only cuts into maybe like 10% or 15%.
We need to wrap it up. Yeah, I gave you an extra minute and a half.
Okay, last thing. If you create some grading system where the trees on the border of a development, which don't ruin the entire development, are harder to take out, and you give those more value, as opposed to the ones smack in the middle, and grade those based on the value, then you can create the proper incentives for people to actually keep them. That's not in this right now.
Thank you so much. Is it? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for any discussion or motions. Turn your mic on.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
I would like to, I move to recommend approval of case UDP T24007 based on the testimony heard, and the board hereby finds that the application meets the applicable criteria of the ULDR cited in the staff report. There are no conditions in the staff report, are there?
No.
No, without any conditions. That's my motion, but if this motion passes, after this, I am going to make a motion to send a communication to the commission regarding advancing as soon as possible into the next steps, including incentives, because incentives will make the whole tree preservation system more effective and better. So, but that's, my motion is to move this to the city commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do a roll, please. Oh, before you said, who did make a second? Brian. Before you do that, I forgot to ask if there was any disclosures on this. I know I spoke with someone.
You want to start?
Yeah.
Any disclosures?
So,
There are no disclosures,
this one's
right?
legislative,
Right.
so you don't have
So we
to
don't
do
need
that.
Good.
You can volunteer, but you don't
Nope.
have to.
All good.
No, moving.
All right. Do the call.
Let me write it. Yes.
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 Yes. All right. Now you want to make another. We have
Yeah, I'm
communication
right.
to the city. What?
Missed one.
Who did I miss? Oh,
I didn't get to vote.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If you want, I'll say yes.
Oh,
That way it's
how
still
about
unanimous.
that?
There you go.
Never miss Patrick. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Communication for the city commission. I think that Marilyn wanted to say something.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion that we send a communication, along with this, send a
Okay.
communication to the city commission. We are asking the city commission to direct the city manager to advance the next portion of the tree preservation ordinance, including incentives, as soon as possible.
Do we have a second?
Second, Jay Schechtman.
I'm sorry, yes, did you call my name?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Scheckman,
Yes.
Mr. Bronco. Mr. Donaldson,
Yes.
Mr. McTeague,
Yes.
Mr. Gannon,
Yes.
and Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
unanimously.
Now we have for the good of the city, but I think Marilyn covered it, unless anyone else has anything else. No. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Good.
You could just adjourn.